Let's hope it does. Am I recording? Can you see the little light, Jen?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, good. All right. When it's on my second screen, it's so far up to the top that I can't see it.
I'll let you start and I'll chime in.
All right. So this is going to be pages 42 and 43 in your ebooks. Kelly and Ryan, have you received the ebook? Did I get you both of those?
Yeah, I have mine.
Okay, Kelly, do you have yours? All right, I'll make sure you get it, Kelly. Ebook. All right. I think everybody else is good. Ryan and Kelly are just beginning with us, so they'll need to start in the next round. So today we're going to discuss motivations and impediments that might keep you from reaching client goals. We're going to talk a little bit more about active listening. You've heard a lot about active listening for those of you who've been here since the beginning. There's a reason for that. Listening is maybe 90% of real estate. You've got to be listening to what people are telling you. You have to listen to the buyers. You have to listen to the sellers. You have to listen to the other agents. You have to listen to your own gut feelings on things too, which will sometimes motivate you to ask more questions. Discuss classifying and isolating objections. So objections come in a bunch of different categories, and it's good to know how to break them down. So we're going to teach you some tricks for doing that. And you're still going to come up with unique situations, and you're going to have to learn how to act on your feet. Again, real estate is not only a relationship business, it's a problem-solving business. Jen, you want to take this one?
Nope, because I'm doing attendance.
Okie doke. I got it. What motivates
here?
Got it. What motivates the seller to sell? So tell me something. You can see the list. So somebody tell me about seller motivations. Why people sell their house?
They might be
You can read the
moving.
list.
They might be moving.
Might be moving. Well, yeah, I think they're definitely moving. You mean out of state or out of the area?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Transfer job. Sorry. Oh, yeah, that was dumb. Sorry.
It wasn't dumb. It was just cute. Some I would say.
Upsizing or downsizing.
Yep.
Sometimes it's voluntary, sometimes it's involuntary.
Yeah, why would it be involuntary in it?
It could be something as a divorce, like a court order. It could be a job relocation. It could be a death in the family, and maybe it's an elderly couple and now they have to move. Maybe they can't afford the home anymore. They lost a job. It could be a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, there are a lot of different reasons why someone might be forced to move. And when someone is forced to move, where are the emotions? Emotions are way there. If there's 1 out of 10, 10 being the highest, they're to 15. They are, if people are forced to get out of their homes, you become their priest, their counselor, their, so their emotions are so high. So one of the phrases I like to say to myself that you may use is to get into my feet, ground yourself. Just when you're working with people at high emotions, your emotions have to kind of flatten out, and you've got to be really careful not to over emote with them, which is very difficult because you take everything personally, and you can't, because you have to keep the goal in mind. Does that make sense to people? Emotions are high anyway, even if you want to move. Moving is stressful. So, but when they don't want to move, if you're that agent, you're going to take on some extraordinary roles, and it's doable. It's more doable if you can ground yourself and stay pretty neutral. And hopefully that makes sense to you. They may want a new climate. So people in upstate New York, where do they often move to? They get to a certain age.
Florida.
Sunny Florida.
Sunny Florida. And they want to get out of, they're tired of shoveling snow. They're tired of February and March. They just don't want to do it anymore. And you get that combination of snowbirds and those who just want to become a Southern bird. So climate can be very motivating for people in our area, very motivating. I'm sure all of you know someone who has relocated to warmer weather. Sometimes people just want to have something more affordable going forward in life. They may be able to afford it now, their jobs may support it, but they just feel like they'd be more comfortable going toward retirement if they could just afford more. Sometimes you have younger people. They're like, I may want to get some more education, so I want to reduce my bills so I can pay for that. So be thinking about, is there just one reason for people to move generally? Now I see Doris, I see Ryan, I see Annette shaking their heads, and a bunch of others, Aaron and Shauna. It's multi-layers, it's an onion. There's many reasons why people want to move. So if you know what those reasons are, we talked about Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. You know what the goal is because you've uncovered their wants and their needs, why they need to do this. You've used Ford to help them understand it. So to help them get to their objective, which is to move, you got to keep coming back because those onions, they're going to be on different layers at different times, and some things are more motivating than others. So if you know the whole story, you're more successful in keeping it together to closing. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions around that? Okay. For Ryan and Kelly, because you don't know me, if you guys have something you want to share, ask, just do it. Just unmute yourself and ask. These guys know that, and hopefully they'll just chime in if they want to. They may move for neighbors, noise, traffic. I moved for a neighbor. We had my first house. We liked our house. We had done a whole bunch of work to it, but across the street was a double. And on one side, there was an older couple. And then on the other side, there was a young couple. Well, one day we'd been in our house for 3 years. I went outside and the older couple's daughter, Mary, and her husband, Tony, were going to move into the other side of the double. They were not our favorite people. They were driving drunk up and down the street, racing with kids playing in the street. And I was frequently out having screaming matches with them because they just were horrible. And I'm sitting on my front step and I hear him say, "Hey, Meg, Tony and Mary are going to move on the other side of the double." I was like, "What?" I walked in the house and said to my husband, "Tony and Mary are moving in across the street." He says, "Call Lillian." Lillian was my neighbor and realtor that I grew up across the street from. My house was listed 3 days later and it was sold on the 4th day. I had linoleum glue on my arms because I had just put down a linoleum floor in the kitchen by myself with me and a rolling pin. And I had furniture all over the house. One person saw the house, and it was also a seller's market. And we were gone. We had to find a house. We were lucky we found one. Anyway, sometimes people move for the neighbors. Sometimes they want a different school district. Is it always about, on school district, you can't talk about the specifics of the school district, but they can look it up. What are some of the reasons people want a different school district?
More opportunities
Special
in
needs
school
or
district
gifted.
for their children.
Yeah.
Special needs is a big one. What else?
Being bullied.
Sometimes, yeah, that's unfortunate.
Excellence.
Yep. And sometimes I moved once with my kids because the district I lived in, we had 13 years of austerity budget. They could not get that district to pass a school budget. So the books were old. My daughter was supposed to go the next year into a mobile home in the parking lot. And that was going to be her classroom. I was like, okay, I'm done. That's it. We're out. So it can be an austerity budget. It was a poor district and they just would not pass a budget. So sometimes you may want to ask them why, and then send them to the resources to help them find the schools. And the best resource is to call the district itself and call and ask about programs and those things.
Maggie, I have a quick question about
Sure.
that. So being a real estate agent, but also being a school teacher, how would I go about answering questions? Because I am on the inside being a teacher. I still can't. I still have to refer them to, okay.
And so what you say is, as a Realtor, I can't speak to that. It's a fair housing violation. However, I can send you to the resources where you can get some answers, and those resources need to be neutral, not your friend. So make it neutral, make it the district itself, make it public ratings that you can find online. Ask your manager in your area. But no, they can't say, well, you taught in XYZ school. What can you tell me about it? You can say, I had a wonderful experience teaching there, and I just loved my families. Other than that, I can't tell you anything else. That's about as far as you can go.
Thank you.
And if they say, well, what about anything specific? You say, I'm sorry, I'm bound by fair housing. And they'll respect you for it. I promise. 1% of people won't. So what motivates buyers to buy?
Low interest rates.
Yeah, that's a good one. Right now, because you can buy a whole lot more house. Why is that helpful in a seller's market that we're dealing with now?
Drives up prices because people get into bidding wars.
Right. So they're able to buy those houses at the higher sale price rate for about the same monthly payment as if the house was sold at the lower price a few years ago. Right. So there's some advantage there. So for buyers, some of that's a wash. They're not really getting the advantage. Who's getting the advantage in the seller's market? Seller. Why? What are they getting?
More money.
More cash in hand. So sellers, it really is a big advantage. Buyers, it's more of a wash rather than a loss. So it's depending on the situation. It's not 100% true, but nothing is. They may want a bigger home. They might want a smaller home. They might want a ranch home. They may want stairs. They may not want stairs. They may want a big yard. They may want a little yard. They may want neighbors. They may want to not see anyone ever again as long as they live and be in the woods. Transportation and amenities. We don't, in Rochester, we have terrible public transport. I've lived in places that have good public transport, and that's a beautiful thing. They want to be near Wegmans. They want to be near Target. They want to be near the Home Depot. Kevin, did you have something? I saw your little box light up.
Yeah, well, people buy because of COVID also.
And what do you mean?
Well, people might be renting right now in, say, New York City, and they realize if they're going to work remotely, they can do that anywhere, especially in a place that's dirt cheap. So why not buy and work remotely instead of treading water renting in a metropolis?
Yeah, so that really has changed tremendously. In some markets, it really has changed a lot, that people have made the decision they're going to work remotely going forward. And some companies are getting on board with that. And part of that is because they're recognizing their workers worked hard from home, and we've had a year to put this experiment to the test. And we have found that workers working from home work more hours than they used to, actually. And they're working harder than they ever have. But they're just not necessarily working the same hours. So some people, yeah, Roxanne says people want bigger homes with COVID. Yes, because they want to not see their family. I took a 5-mile walk with my friend in the frigid cold on Saturday. You were bundled up like Nanook of the North. And she was like, I just hate them all right now. I just want, she's got 2 teenagers and a husband. She's like, I can't take it. So we went out with it was very breezy, and we live on hills, very big hills. So we walked in the frigid cold so she could get away from her family for an hour. School districts amenities, desire for smaller, more expensive home, independence from parents. That can not only be young people every once in a while, the older people may have moved in, or you may have moved into an older parent's house. Place of their own. Jen, are you ready to jump in?
Yep, I'm back.
All right, why don't you use 7 steps?
Absolutely. So 7 steps of overcoming an objection. Actively listen, like we have been talking about all along. 2 of these, 1 of these, use them in that proportion. But again, learn how to get good at the asking open-ended questions as well as closed-ended questions. And if they do have a specific objection, isolate it, make sure that what they're saying is what they really mean. So repeat it back to them, and try and classify that objection, whether it's major, minor, or a smoke screen. And that's going to take some probing. You're going to have to ask some more questions of them to sort of get an idea. Are they having cold feet? Are they a little nervous? Is this their first house that, they're going to be on the hook for fixing a broken furnace? Or they, have they never picked up a paint roller and a gallon of paint? So, changing a paint color to them could be major, where to other people that could be a minor thing. So you need to become pretty expert at asking the important questions and sort of explore their reasoning and try and come up with a solution to their objection, or maybe an alternative, and keep the conversation flowing, because you really need to, and some people just need to verbalize what's in their head, and that can come across as being an objection when it's really just nerves, the scary factor of, getting involved in this. Anybody who's bought or sold a home, it's scary in the best of times, even if you do it often, even if you're in the business. So, sort of put yourself, I use the example, or I use the expression, walk a mile in their moccasins, to try and figure out what exactly is there. Is it really an objection, or are they just trying to sort of smoke screen away something, or they may just be truly looking for more direct information. So you do need to be a good listener and a great question asker.
Yep, you do.
What she said.
Listen to valuable clues. Pay attention to phrasing. Be particularly mindful of where they put the emphasis. So I really want to move. I really want to move. I really want to move. Listen to what people are saying. The English language is unique in that we can put emphasis in different places. We can, and it can change the entire meaning of a sentence by how if you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, it changes everything. So what are people actually saying, Jen?
I'll digress for a moment. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was out in Buffalo taking a sales class. And the one thing that stuck with me, and remember this when we talk about consumers phrasing and what Maggie was just saying with putting emphasis on different words. If we were live, I'd put on the whiteboard a sentence, a 7-word sentence. It's been so long since I've done this. I didn't say I killed my husband. If you read that sentence, putting the emphasis on each word, it changes the meaning of that sentence 7 different ways. I didn't say I killed my husband. 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 You get the drift of that. Be very aware when you put things in writing that there is no emphasis on a word unless you italicize it or bold it. And even then the messaging can get lost. So be super careful when you're texting and emailing people that what you're saying is not necessarily what they're hearing. And that's why it's so great to have a phone conversation with somebody, and always best to be face-to-face, even Zoom face-to-face. So you can see their their body language, their changes in their facial expressions. But just be super careful that if you're trying to get a message across, pick up the phone and have a conversation instead, and then follow it up with a follow-up email. But just be aware it happens all the time where people are like, you sounded like you were mad at me. And I'm like,
People
"I was-"
read your messages in the mood they are in, not the mood you were in when you sent it.
Right.
So if they're not in a good place at that moment, it can be. So if you have bad news to deliver, do you deliver it by email? Don't do it. It will, the unwinding is so much more cumbersome than just saying, I need to talk to you on the phone or see you in person, and then make sure that you make it happen.
Yeah, and even those folks who say, I only want to deal with you via text. Great, you text them and say, I need to have a 5-minute phone conversation with you. When is a good time?
So we've
Because you'll
talked,
hear agents saying, oh, I did the whole transaction via text. Yeah, okay, in a perfect world, that may work without any issue. But some of this stuff, when negotiating, we'll talk about next, needs to be this type of conversation.
so set the expectation when you have your first conversations with your client and you're talking about how do you like to be communicated with, say, I want to let you know that if there's something that's complicated or it needs further exploration, I will need to talk to you by phone or in person. If you set the expectation on day one, when it happens, it's much easier to deal with. If you don't ever discuss it until the problem, it's a problem. It's a bigger problem. So set those expectations early. Most realtors do not slow down their presentations to their clients, buyers or sellers in the beginning so that they can have those initial expectation conversations, which are essential, in my opinion, to the transaction running smoothly. The more you set the field, the better off. Imagine the Super Bowl if both coaches came out and said, well, you know what your jobs are, just go do it. How much preparation do you think both of those teams were in the last 2 weeks? They discussed everything. They watched videos on how things had gone in the past, and they watched over and over and over and over again. And so what they were actually doing was getting ready to overcome the objections on the field. And think of yourself as preparing for that event. Pay attention to who's voicing the objection. So if you're working with more than one seller client or more than one buyer client, can their ideas differ? She says, I don't like this house. He says, oh, I think this house is fantastic. Did you see that workshop? Oh my God. It's got a 3-car garage. It's got a big yard and I can do this and that. And she's like, I don't like this house. It's not hitting whatever her wants are, but it's maybe meeting his. So you got to get them on the same page.
Or at least get them and this may take two separate conversations, find out, why is she so adamant that she doesn't like it? And is she all about the kitchen? And is it a horrible, gross old kitchen? Or is it the neighborhood? The old adage in real estate, there's three things that are most important about a house: location, and then there's location, and then, don't forget about location. And that's one of the things that you cannot change about a house. Many other things you can change, and some consumers just may not even realize that. You might find a great house that's below your budget, but it does have a horrifying kitchen, and people can't think, well, I can't afford to redo a kitchen. Well, maybe they can. So it's sort of our job to sort of do that little bit of digging deeper and find out, because you may have two very different wish lists, even among two spouses.
Yep. And you may find that you have a couple of any configuration where one of them is the person who's coming up with all the money is going to be the person on the deed, and the person who is not putting up any money is not going to be on the deed, is the one with all the negative opinion. I don't like this one. I want that one. And I've had that couple. They will be looking for a house for 5 years. I take them out every spring to a couple of houses, and it's the same thing all the time. She's lovely, it's her money, and he's like, nothing's ever big enough and right. And I have stood in front of him and go, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. What do you want? Pay no attention to the man behind me. And I turn around, because I know them really well now. And I'm like, are you putting up money? He's like, no. And I said, then isn't it her decision? And she can't do it. She can't do it without his, and I've tried to take her aside and say, really, this is your house. What do you want?
Are they still together?
Yes, and I don't know why, because she is very accomplished and smart, and she's very pretty, and this guy has a little too much control over her. So be aware that sometimes the decision maker won't make a decision, and it's the other person who is influencing everything.
But there's also circumstances where you may have a young person who's bringing along a parent to help. Even if the parent isn't giving money, it's always best to, ask very early on, like the first meeting, who is going to be with you for this journey? Because if it is a parent, get them involved sooner rather than later, so they're not the deal killer at the end, and make them a part of the conversation if that's what the buyer wants. And a lot of times you'll find that with first-time buyers, and that's okay. Bring mom and dad along to make them feel a part of it, so that they're not coming in at the 11th hour and killing the deal because they just need to show their influence. So you can actually turn them into advocates for you.
Yep, absolutely. Jen, you want to talk about listening skills?
Yeah, it goes back to we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And this is a skill. And, I know Maggie and I with these classes, we're up here yammering on and on. This is a skill. As humans, we love to, first and foremost, talk about ourselves. And we love to share our knowledge. I mean, you ask anybody, can you recommend a good restaurant in town? Most everybody can come up with something because they've had a great experience somewhere or a bad experience somewhere. But everybody loves to talk. So you've got to be really dialed in as a real estate professional to become a really good listener. And it's not easy. It has taken me years of people being very critical of me, saying, you're not listening to what I'm saying, you're just responding with your agenda. So you need to listen without interrupting. That's very difficult, very difficult. You need to confirm what you heard. You need to pause, ingest it, and then repeat back to the speaker what they said, and maybe rephrasing it or paraphrasing to make sure that you heard correctly what they were saying. And sometimes you do that and the speaker will say, well, that's not what I said. And you may have like regurged exactly word for word what they said, but it may have been in the heat of the moment or whatever, and that's not really what they meant. So this is the most important skill a realtor can have, other than taking great notes and being on time and being polite. A fabulous listener will go very far in this industry because everybody wants to be heard. There's also an art to it because you don't want people, you don't want to sit with the old lady who hasn't talked to anybody in 3 days and just have her yammer on for hours, but you need to direct it. But this is a skill set that everybody, all of us, can always improve upon.
And one of the challenges for realtors, especially when you start to get a little experience and knowledge, is they call it polyphasic thinking. Someone's talking and you're already thinking of the answer. And so that kind of thinking makes people want to jump in and say, oh, I know what you mean. And you spit it out. If you're like me and you're a talker, take a notepad with you and write down what they're saying. It'll slow you down and zip your lip a little bit. It can help. It can be very helpful. If you remind yourself before you have a conversation that you have to wait until they finish before you contribute, that can help. If you have that mental conversation with yourself before you have that actual one. And everything that Jen said, confirm what they've heard and repeat it back. But try the note taking if you're a talker. It'll slow you down. And remember that your experience may be helpful, but not if you're running them over to get what you think your point is more important in that moment. And that can be very challenging. And if you screw it up, just say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, and then shut up and let them go. Because people, none of us are perfect. You're going to make mistakes. It's just part of the game. Just be accountable and backtrack and give them the opportunity to speak. So isolate the objection. So this is a great way to help buyers focus, or even sellers. So we could find a solution to XYZ. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't want to move ahead? And you can use that with sellers who may think that the price isn't high enough right now, or the time frame, maybe this isn't the right time for them. I don't want to sell my house during COVID. I don't know if I can find a new place. So if we could find a solution for that, is there any other reason why you wouldn't move ahead? If they might have another reason, guess what? You ask them the same question. So if we could handle that as well, is there anything else? It makes people stop and think.
Yeah, be very comfortable with that sentence right up there in quotes. And some people are like, oh, that makes me sound a little too pushy. Our jobs are to help people buy or sell, or not buy and not sell. And all of those scenarios are okay. But what you don't want to have happen is the perpetual buyer using all of your time, resources, and energy to just go look at houses. And they're out there. There's a lot of them. And so if you ask someone this question and they're like, oh, well, I'm not ready to move forward. I've only seen 20 houses. I need to see at least 50 more. That may be a little red flag in your brain to say, let's ask some more questions to find out why exactly are we looking at these houses? Is it, what is your why for why we are going through all of this? Because for a lot of people, this is a hobby. And I don't mean the realtors, I mean the people out looking at the houses. Sellers, not so much, because you've got to, sign on the dotted line in order to get the sign in front of the house. But there are a lot of buyers out there who this is their hobby. They just go look at homes because they like to get decorating ideas or whatever. So you need to be very comfortable with that sentence to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff.
And you're going to have people who think they want to move, but don't really want to move, but perpetually are looking. So I have one, I'm going to call her Barb. So Barb will call me up every couple of months. She gets Real Scout things. She goes, I want to go see this house. And I'll say, great, what is it about this house you like? And she'll tell me. And I say, do you see any, are you ready to move now? Well, I just bought all of these new appliances and I just did this. And I've had this conversation with her for 3 years now. And then she'll tell me about why she loves her house and her current house is perfect. But she's moving because her daughter wants her to move. She doesn't want to move. Her daughter wants her to move. And maybe at some point she may find the perfect house. I doubt it. Her house has some really unique features. I don't think she's going to be able to replace it in the community. Her daughter wants her to move. And by the time she finds it, I'm guessing her daughter's going to move. In the meantime, you're going to have some of those people, but I maintain the relationship and we've looked at 1 or 2 houses, but we don't go look at 50. I could have been looking for the last 3 years. I guarantee you she wouldn't have moved, not based on the actual conversations we've had, but I stay in with her because, she may refer business to me that might wind up with one of the agents in my office because that's what I do with that business now. But I would still take her out on a weekend. If she really thought there was something, I would take her and I'd show her and then I'd turn her over. So just, you got to pick who's real, who's motivated to buy right now. They have a reason. So categorize the objection, major, minor, smoke screen. Jen?
Yep, so this will sort of break down what we had touched on. So things that are major, they cannot be changed or cannot be changed without a lot of expense. Like I said, the location, you cannot change the location. Say, I love this house. I wish I could just move it to the next town. Not possible. A major thing, rooms are too small for the furniture that they already have. And it's not in the school district they're looking for. That's certainly a major thing. Seller doesn't have cash to bring to the closing table. That's a big major. True major objections cannot be overcome. To move forward, the consumer has to adjust. So, that's a whole different, like, okay, your furniture can't fit. Do you love this house enough to sell the furniture you have and buy smaller scale furniture? Is that an option for you? Choosing a different school district, have you ever considered that? Or defer selling until the market is more favorable, which, that's a slippery slope because nobody has a crystal ball to say, what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. But again, if people don't have the money to go forward with a transaction, they ought not be going forward in any way, shape, or form. And then minor things, things that can be changed, like I don't like the color of this room, the carpet is old and dirty. I'm not giving this house away, which just, shows you, some people list their house way higher than it's would ever sell for just to see what the market bears. And, in this market, just ask Tim C. He knows, you can list a house at 9 a.m. and have it be sold by noon. So, to have a seller say, I'm not going to give this house away, that's further conversation that you need to have. And often, people are just processing the emotions out loud and it comes out as these minor objections. So again, do that hardest thing ever, stay silent, and let them work out the details verbally. Talk it through, let them talk it out. And you know, a lot of folks who have never owned a home before don't realize it's not a huge expense. And I say that in relation to buying a whole house, to change the color of a room or change the flooring. And that's where you can say, hey, what if we got some estimates on replacing flooring? Or what if we got estimates for a painter to come in? You may be surprised, you may be appalled at how much they charge, or you may be like, oh, I didn't realize it was that reasonable. And again, this is the dialogue that you are going to have with people, because some folks cannot see past the hot pink little girl's bedroom when they have 3 boys. They're like, well, this house isn't going to work for us because that one bedroom is hot pink. To me, it's like, well, that's a gallon of paint. That's an easy fix. But for a lot of people, they've never touched a paintbrush in their life, and that's okay too. But again, you need to have that conversation. So, you know, the minors are things that are very potentially fixable. And then last but not least, the smoke screen are, you know, vague statements that are really covering up something stronger that they're not either ready to discuss, or the sort of the fear of the unknown. You know, I want to think it over, and especially in this market, or if you think it over, you lose it. So you need to be pretty direct with buyers if that's what they're saying, because if that's what they're saying, they may not be ready yet to buy. You know, I need to discuss it with my dad, my mom, my significant other, my sister, you know, whatever. Again, that's a conversation that you should have had prior to making any effort to say, you know, who else is going to be included in this. So you've already had that conversation, and then they say, oh, I need to discuss it with Mr. X. That may be a smoke screen for a bigger, deeper issue. And again, you know, blank needs to see the house before we can make an offer. So again, try and get to what the real objection is from trying to see through that smoke screen. They're called smoke screens for a reason.
They are. Explore their reasoning. The first objection raised may not be the real or ultimate objection or concern. So before responding, draw the customer out a bit. You know, first acknowledge they have a right to feel the way they feel. People want acknowledgement a lot of the time. They just want you to, they may say, oh my God, I walk in here, I hate the colors. You know, it feels oppressive to me, or it makes me nervous. It's so bright, or something. You say, oh, I can understand why you feel that way. And then what are we going to try to do with our client? How can we help them move past their current feeling? What do you need to get them to do?
Talk.
Okay, and say what, Beth? What are you going to try to get them to do when they're talking? It's okay. You won't fail if you don't get this right.
Sort of work out what it is for themselves by using you as a sounding board.
That's one way to go at that. What can I try to help encourage them to do about the house? So our house is static. Can they only be one way? Or Cheryl?
I think, you know, allowing them, you know, giving them an opportunity to say, hey, why don't you just sit on this, think about it, try to visualize your colors, your stuff.
There's
Let's
the
not
word.
Focus on what's going on right now.
There's the word I'm looking for. Visualize. You got to help them to visualize. Visualize the house in their style. That's perfect. Perfect. That's exactly the word I'm looking for. Visualize. So you can do that by saying, what would you do if it was your house? How do you see this space? How would you change it? It's amazing that once they start to play that game of what would you do, that they can start to turn the house into their own house. Once they see the house in their style, oh, I would change the colors completely. I'd go from all this dark to a lot of light colors, or I'd go from all this light to a lot of dark. I'd go to, arts and craft period colors, whatever. I was in Europe and they had all these beautiful golden hues and earth tones, and I would love to see something like that in this house, and let them tell you about it and then say, oh, that sounds beautiful. I don't care if those are the colors you hate most in the world. That sounds beautiful. That sounds like it would make you really happy. Try not to put the emphasis too hard on that you, like it sounds like it would make you very happy. Help them visualize it, and because all of a sudden once they visualize it, they're done with whatever's there.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Maggie.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
A great exercise to do with people is to literally offer them, say, okay, we're going to have some fun here in this house. Here's your magic wand. What would you change and how would you change it in the house? Magic wands are very powerful tools to get people to try and get out of themselves a little bit and get maybe more into their imaginations or into what they're visualizing. So to give them the permission to say, I'm going to hand you this magic wand. And even if it's a imaginary magic wand, here's my trusty dusty imaginary magic wand. Let's go through the house and ding, let's look at the kitchen. How do you visualize making this your kitchen? It's a good exercise for their brain.
And if you have somebody who's a Sheldon Cooper, more analytical, and the magic wand isn't going to work for them, you can say, what steps would you take to make this your own? It's specific, it's scientific, it's linear, it's a process. So if you have an engineering mind, what steps would you take to make this your own? I like the magic wand. I'm magic wand all day long, but not all your clients will be. So which one do you have? And you may have both. You can say to the wife, for you, whoosh, what will we do? For you, what steps would you take? You can deal with them separately, and you can deal with their personalities at the same time. They get that. They live with each other. They know that they have different personalities. And if you address both personalities, you are such a hero. So, but don't guess at their meaning. Many, many, many times, you'll ask a question. I might say, hey, Kathy DeMacher, can you turn on your mic? I'm going to role play with you just a little bit. So Kathy, if I wanted to get behind an objection, I might say, so can you tell me a little bit more about that? Say it's a kitchen. What don't you like about this kitchen, Kathy?
The counters. The counters are awful.
So what kind of counters would you like to have? What do you need?
I would rather have granite countertops.
Okay, so, and have you had granite before?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how to deal with them and you like them and you're great with that. So is that something you'd be willing to do later on, or is that something you'd need to have the day you move in?
Ideally, I'd rather it be the day I move in, but if it's the right house, I might be willing to wait on it.
Okay, so in this house that we're in, is this something you'd want to have done now, or would you be willing to wait because it ticks enough other boxes?
I would definitely want it done in that house, but I could wait.
You could wait.
Mm-hmm.
So we can put this in our B level. It's not an A level. This isn't a deal breaker.
Correct. Everything else in the kitchen's fine.
Okay, great. And you like the rest of the house a lot?
Yep.
Awesome. So, and that's how it works. So we identified she wants granite countertops. She's had them before. Does anybody know why I asked her if she's had them before? Granite
They require
countertops?
different
Because you
needs.
have to seal them regularly.
Yeah, there's work involved. People think they want granite and they're like, oh God, why did I get granite? Because they can stain and there's issues with, I never want granite. I want
You can
quartz.
spill wine on them, or it's, yeah, we have quartz. Quartz is best, I think.
I want quartz, or even one of the Cambria or those, something I can take care of really simply. But I want to know if she's had them before, because if she hasn't, I want to, at a different moment, I'm going to discuss with her what granite countertops really are, and make sure that that's going to really fit her lifestyle. But by asking a few more questions, we moved that from I got to have them to a B list in a few simple steps. And that technique of talking to somebody, we ask many questions, keep digging, gently digging. But you're not, you're not grilling people, but you're digging down, getting to the right answers, because that way, if it's a deal breaker, it's a deal breaker. This house may not work. So don't guess at their meaning of their objection. You got to know why they're objecting. Stop talking is maybe more important sometimes than just listening. In the sales part of your job, you can unsell a house by talking when you should be waiting and waiting for them to say the next thing. And that can be from the listing, not getting the listing because they said they were ready to sign and you felt compelled to tell them more. The minute they say, I'm ready to sign, and say, here's my pen, let's sign it. You will still have to make sure there's certain things that they understand, but they're signing. So this says this, sign here. This says this, do you understand it? Sign here. Initial here, sign here. Do not continue with your presentation because you worked so hard on it, because sometimes by the time you're at the end, if they've already said yes 15 minutes ago or an hour ago, by the time you get there, they're like, you know what? I want to think about it.
Yeah, be on their timeline, not on yours.
Yep. So stop talking. When you deliver, I think we should offer this price because they've asked you. Based on the comparative market analysis, this is what I think this is where I think we should start. Shut up. Don't fill the silence. The next person who speaks, they used to say when I sold cars, loses. Just wait. Because the next thing you say is you come down or go up, and you start to lose the negotiation. So stop talking. It's so important. Jen?
So you're going to answer the objection. Once you've understood it, you can respond to it, answer concisely but completely. Hard facts and evidence support a stronger response. Like Maggie said, if you're dealing with somebody who is an engineer, super analytical, they are going to need the facts instead of the magic wand. But again, you will be checking back for clarification. Take a moment to confirm. Have I addressed your concern? Does that make sense? And wait for their answer. This is not buying a pair of shoes. So you need to read their body language, read their eyes, and make sure that they are comfortable moving forward. Because if they're not comfortable now and you're pushing them, some people, need to be pushed on a level, but you need to be very careful and be sure to be clarifying as you go to make sure that everybody is staying on the same page.
Yeah, I put this slide deck together, and so I chose this picture for a reason. Can anybody tell me what the man in the picture, the realtor in this picture, what's he doing? Why would I pick this one for?
Being an active listener.
He's an active listener.
He's mirroring.
He's mirroring. He's making. Yeah, look at the hands.
Eye contact.
In the eye contact.
Yeah.
He's listening. He's open. He's mirroring. He's present.
He's engaging.
Yeah.
Without saying a word.
Right. And that's what you need to do. And he's got his hands together, and this is pretty much the posture I assume when I'm in the shut up mode. Because if I'm in shut up mode, my hands, I should have been Italian, but I'm not. I haven't got an ounce of Italian blood in me, but man, do I talk with my hands. He's got his hands together. So if you're a person who uses your body a lot, bless you, this posture can help you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That posture can help you slow down. So these are little tricks that aren't meant to manipulate the client. They're meant to manipulate you into being a better listener and to being more present. So, and it's okay to manipulate yourself to be a better anything, right? So some of these techniques really strongly work. Activity, seller objections. So we're going to practice a few of these. So we're going to ask for a variety of you to pitch in. I'm a buyer. I want to see an open house every weekend. I want an open house. I'm a seller. I want an open house every weekend. Somebody answer me.
Sure, we can do that.
I want it for 6 months, Jen. If the house doesn't sell for 6 months, I still want an open house every weekend. Are we going to do that?
Let me think about it. That's a tough one. We can try doing it, or we have to find a different way to get a house sold. Talk about the different options and make a different game plan in the middle of the time.
That's good. So your first instinct as a new agent is to say, yes, I can make that happen. Before you say that, before you overcommit yourself and overpromise and underdeliver, ask more questions. How many open houses are we talking about? How many weeks in a row? You may want to have them the first couple of weeks, but then you have open house fatigue, and it really doesn't help to sell the house. So what you would have to do is change your marketing plan. Jen, you want to work on the next one?
Sure. So this is the seller with this objection. My uncle is an attorney, and he said I should sell it myself.
Go ahead, Shauna.
Did he tell you how to sell it yourself, or do you know how to sell it yourself?
Well, no, not exactly, but if he's an attorney, he must know what he's talking about. So I think I'm just going to try and sell it myself.
Do you know where you're going to list the home?
No, I have no idea. I think I'm just going to buy one of those signs at Ace Hardware and put my name and phone number on it and stick it in the front yard. That should do the trick. So why should I use you and not just do it myself?
It will absolutely limit you on how many people are going to view that sign and reach out to you and call you.
You're absolutely right, Shauna. And I would definitely go on to basically highlight your marketing plan of what a realtor does. And, a lot of people think, oh, I've got a buyer, so the transaction's done. And it's basically educating the seller to say, oh, no, that's just where the fun begins. And, do you have a copy of a contract? Do you know of a good home inspector? Do you only allow people in your home who are pre-qualified? So definitely have in your toolbox the answers, because in this market, you're going to be hearing that a lot. Like, I think I can just sell it myself. So have at your ready how you're going to overcome those objections, because I guarantee you're going to hear that more in this type of a market than certainly if it was a buyer's market.
So you can say to people too things like, oh, that sounds like a huge project. That's a big undertaking. Do you have a few minutes so I can help you to understand a few things you might need going forward? And then you can help them. And they may or may not let you list their house. But you can talk, we talked about how much more money you as a realtor are able to get over a FSBO. Those are powerful numbers. The marketing plans, handling everybody coming into your house. Do you know what a PCD is? Is your uncle, or is it his uncle? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your uncle a real estate attorney, or is he just a general attorney? So you're on the right track. And these are things you need to practice so that you can get better at them. According to ABC or DEF Realty, you don't advertise in print anymore. Why not? So do you guys have print advertising? We do too. So this doesn't really come up for us because I think across New York State we do. Across Howard Hanna footprint, we don't. In New York State, people are still getting the newspaper. So some companies will answer this objection by saying print doesn't work. If in your area print advertising works, talk about that with clients. Say, have you ever been, this is what I use, I say, have you ever been into a diner on a Saturday morning? Sunday morning, people who are looking to go buy a house have the paper and they're looking at the section where the open houses. And they're circling them and they're driving out. So in our area, culturally, people still are using the newspaper to find open houses. And if you're in an area that has that, talk about the fact that we have that, because very few realtors use print anymore.
Yeah, and locally here in the capital region, we advertise in print our online presence. So they're pretty generic ads. We no longer have individual open houses listed in the Sunday paper. We always have an ad in the real estate section that's a pull-out section showing you how to go online to find where all the open houses are, where all the new construction is. So again, you need to know your stuff for what Howard Hanna does and offers in your local marketplace. So, get with your manager to get the scoop on that.
You want to take the middle one?
Sure. I'm looking for someone with experience in selling this price range. How do you overcome that objection as a brand new agent?
Let's say she's talking about a $400,000 house.
What was the question again?
I'm looking for someone with experience in selling this price range. I have a $400,000 house to sell. I want someone with experience selling $400,000 houses. Why should I use you?
Well, you should use us because of Howard Hanna. We have an entire agency that sold a multitude of houses at your disposal and a marketing team, and go on into your pitch.
I would validate his concern first and say, I could see that you might be concerned, but I have a tremendous amount of support with my manager that I will oversee, make sure everything is done and approved by her first with your okay.
Yeah, I think you're both, Jamie and Cheryl, you're on the right thing by using your greater team. I've got a team of people, we have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's day one, you have the experience available to you.
Yeah.
So you guys are right on the right track. Perfect. I really don't understand the benefit of Real Scout or hot listings or any of these things you told me about in the listing presentation. How's that going to help me sell my house?
More exposure.
Here's one for Real Scout. Write this number down. Real Scout has a 54% higher open rate than other types of searches. Why? Because it has unique sentences to the person's preferences. So when it goes out to them, it'll say, hey, maybe you missed this house with all of these features, and it'll mention them specifically that you liked. It may go to two different people. It'll come out differently. You liked an open floor plan. You wanted a finished basement. You liked a built-in swimming pool. You liked a big backyard. So your statement, same house, those opening statements will say something else. And so it has a higher open rate. That higher open rate means more people actually look at the house in detail that they might have passed over just on the picture.
Real Scout uses our AI, artificial intelligence. Get familiar with what that means. Get familiar with Real Scout. Set yourself up as a consumer in it. Has everybody done that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you can see what the agent's view looks like and then what a consumer's view looks like. It's a very cool technology. And as far as I know, I don't believe any other broker, I know at least in our area, I don't believe is using that same platform. So again, it's a platform that, you know, as far as the seller is concerned, differentiates your home from every other home that's out there for sale.
I just wanted to comment about Real Scout. What I like is I can see how many times my clients have viewed a house and actually the time when they've seen it and which house they've seen. So that's a cute tool that I had no idea until I started using.
Yeah. So Doris, when they get to 3 opens, I call them up and I say, hi, I see that you've opened up this listing on 3 times. I wondered if you had any other questions or wanted to schedule an appointment to go see it. And I've had people say, well, I don't want them to think I'm creeping around. I sent it to them. They know I sent it to them. I'm not creeping around. I'm paying attention. I've never had anybody go, why are you looking at what I'm doing? Because I'm your realtor and this is what
And so you've asked me to help you find a house.
I've never had anybody ask me why. I've called them up and said, hey, I see you've opened this 3 times. Did you have more questions or did you want to schedule an appointment to go see it? Or both?
Yeah,
So
it's very, very cool technology.
Yep. Go
Let's
ahead,
see.
Jen. Next one.
I just don't see how such a big company can help me. I have heard that real estate is a local business. I love this. I love this objection. Anybody want to take a stab at it?
I will.
Good, Cheryl.
I would say that, you know, luckily we have local offices and, you know, available to you, but because we are a big company, we have all of these extra resources that are available to us as far as marketing your home and selling for you, you know, because of what we have available to us as opposed to a smaller company.
Perfect. And, you know, Cheryl, I would say, you know, say to people, because our competition tries to use this against us. It is so powerful when you say to a consumer, did you know that Howard Hanna is family owned? Most people think it's some huge corporation. Yes, we're the largest family owned real estate company in the country. I have 25 people in my branch. It's a small branch. So you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, have the best of both worlds. Just like you said, Cheryl, you have me. I'm not some 800 number. I have a full-time manager. I've got an admin. I can give you their names and phone numbers. We are that local. And yes, we're also global. So Cheryl, that was spot on.
It was. Yeah, so, and the family, the local neighborhood, all of that is just so important. So we are local, but we are global. So we have the power of the big company and the familiarity of local offices. And in my area in particular, we have some companies that have market centers with 150 to 250 agents in their market centers. You can say, unlike some other offices, we have in almost every town, we have our home office. These little satellites everywhere. So we have somebody in every area. And if you were looking in a different area than where we live, I can talk to the manager of that office to find out if there's anything unique and special that I need to, that I can pass along to you. So it's, you have this network that's just so much more embedded in community. What about this one? I want to think it over. Oh, Peter, did you want to say something first?
No, I guess it's just something that the question just piques my interest. I guess, you know, the first thing that I would say is that I am local. I've lived here for my entire life, for 35 years. I have the relationships locally. I have contacts to different businesses, you know, so not only are we a large office that, you know, has contacts and does business across the world, I'm from this region and know it inside and out and can provide you with the specific services needed in this area.
That's one of the things I think is most important is your personal value statement. What do you bring that no other Howard Hanna agent or any other agent from any other company brings? What is your personal value statement? All of you need to know what it is for a buyer for you and what it is for a seller, because there's slightly different things that you're going to do for them. What's your personal value statement? If you can say it quickly and succinctly in a way that's understandable, you will get more clients working with you. Because if you believe it, they believe it. And if you can say it, then it's likely, if you've internalized it, it's likely you believe it. So what about, I don't know if I want to list my house now, I want to think it over. It's a seller's market. What can you say to these people?
Would it be wrong to ask them, you know, what is the reason you want to think it over?
Yeah, just
Maybe
not sure the
that's
time is right. Just not sure the time is right.
I would tell them that it's a seller's market.
Okay,
and
so
they're-
what's that mean to me, Lisa?
that you're going to get the most for your house at this period of time.
Can you guarantee that?
No.
No, you can't. So you have to tread a little carefully with how you say that, Shauna.
Okay.
When would be a better time?
That's a good question. When would be a better time and what would make it a better time? It may not be the right time for them, but you can say to Lisa, so here's how you answer that question without saying what you want to say, which is dead on. Say, did you know it's a seller's market? Right now in our area, houses are selling, and this is where you become the local expert, for X%, and you'll have done your research, over asking price. And that these prices are X% more than they were 2 years ago. So on the average, homes are selling for 20% more than they did just 2 years ago. And we don't know how long this market will last. So if you use your market research, you're not guaranteeing anything. You're saying that the data, which is neutral to you, is telling you that the likelihood of them selling their house for a specific percent more is higher now than it was like 2 years ago. Does that make sense, everybody? All of that data is available, and your managers can help you work out how to use that data to your advantage. But that way you're not saying, well, if you sell now, it's a seller's market, you're going to sell your house for more. What if they don't? Who do they blame?
if you don't just bring in the information that you just listed, I mean, obviously I would, get that information. But if you said chances are,
I wouldn't say chance, I wouldn't even say that. I would say on average,
on
homes
average,
are.
okay.
On
okay.
average, homes are selling for.
The hardest thing is going to be to make sure that our wording is so, I mean,
That's why you have to practice.
I'm so overwhelmed with.
Don't be overwhelmed. Just think about, you want to under promise and over deliver.
Okay.
You can't promise things to people that you can't personally guarantee, and you can never guarantee what a house will sell for.
Right. Okay.
You can make a guess, an estimate, but that's it. So what you always want to say is the market data shows me. Market says your house, I'm never saying, I think your house is worth 325,000. What you say instead is the market tells us that your house with a number of bedrooms and its current condition where it resides it looks like it's worth between 325 and 340 or 325 and 335. The market shows us that. I don't tell you anything. The market's telling me that that's what your house is comping out at. So it's language like that. Just got to be specific around it. And this is why we're asking you to practice, 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 because if you practice, you'll catch each other. When I was a massage therapist, I learned to do things in triads. So a lot of people practice with twos, one person playing one part, one person playing the other. In massage, you see one, do one, watch one, see one, get one, watch one. And I like that in real estate too. You can have one person be a seller and one person be a seller's agent. And you can have an observer who observes. They don't talk during the exchange, but they write down some notes. And after the exchange, they can talk about it in a nice, friendly, neutral, supportive way. And when you're role playing, don't make it impossible. Make it possible for people to be successful and escalate the difficulty as you get better at those tasks. And sometimes I blow that, so don't do that. So, set the rules before, make it so you can get where you need to go, give little pushback. And then as you get better at it, then you can get a little more pushback to make it a little more complicated. Does that make sense? Okay. But practice some of these statements. Make sure you're not saying and never guarantee anything, because you can't, unless you're going to buy the house yourself. Buyer objections. Jen.
The stove is too small. I need something bigger than that to cook meals for my family. How do you overcome that objection?
And recommend contractors that can help come in and put in a new stove.
Are you at the beginning of your tour or at the end? I think that's critical. I would say, let's try to look at the rest of the house and see if there's other features that might interest you before we rule this out right away.
Yep, I think, both of those certainly. I mean, a stove in the majority of homes, stoves are
not permanent.
Well, they're not permanent, and they're a fixed width for the most part. So, ask more questions. Say, are you looking for a 5 or a 6 burner stove? What is it? Or are you looking for truly a big, like, a Wolf stove that's, twice the size of a standard stove? You've got to ask more questions, because most stoves you can pull out and push in a new one. They're all standard sizes. So again, ask more questions.
Yes.
But I think, both of you are right to say, if that's the only issue with the house, that's a relatively easy fix. Are you looking for, there may be an electric stove. Are they looking for gas? And is that an option? And if there's no natural gas there, can you do propane? There's lots of ways to get around this option. So ask more questions.
Exactly. I like this house well enough, but if it's in a flood zone, I'm not going to be able to afford it.
You can ask them if they've received a quote from insurances. Is it that they can't afford the flood insurance?
Flood insurance is ghastly. It's very expensive.
Can they shop around so they can maybe get a better deal on it?
It's possible. What else could you do as a realtor? Roxanne says, okay, let's keep looking. Before you take someone to a house, it's not terribly difficult to look to see if it's in a flood zone in the tax records. And if you're in Matrix in Western New York, we actually have a flood zone tab now. Do you have one, Jen?
I'm not sure.
Ours
Honestly.
is right in the listing now. It started about 6 months ago. It's a really nice thing. So you can do some preliminary research. If you think, if there's a big creek right behind the house, there's a lake behind the house, and the house is sort of sits low, you can have asked the listing agent before you've ever gotten there. You know, I asked that question, it's not. So some of this, that can be preemptive.
Yeah, yeah, don't just assume that it is or it isn't. Find out for yourself. Don't always take the listing agent's word for it, because they may not really know either. And it may be worth them getting a quote. I know flood insurance, you know, have them talk to their banker and see, you know, if it's like their dream home. Look at, you know, there's always, I don't want to say ways around it, but get all the facts, because it may be in a flood zone, but that it doesn't require flood insurance, you know, depending on the level that it's at. So bring in a couple more experts and, you know, try and get all of the facts.
And there may be attachments, which Roxanne mentioned. In Rochester and Buffalo on Lake Ontario, since the seaway has been re-engineered, there have been huge flooding problems. Most of it is part of a public record that you can find. And they will have had to disclose that in the PCD. Again, some preemptive reading will help you to determine that. You can have made some calls to find out. So I see your house is on Lake Ontario and it's in the flood zone and they had flooding up in this area. Did you people have flood insurance and what did it cost? So maybe if you already know the answer, and you're right, Annette, they may be able to shop around to get a better price. I'm not sure how much better those prices get. I think flood insurance is by most people's standard, seems expensive, but it's doable. So being preemptive, that's a tough question though. That's a really tough one. So lots of times the answer there is, let's get more information. And that's the whole answer at that point. Let's find out, let's get more information. But in the meantime, let's look at the house and see what we like about it. Let's come back to that. I don't like the yard, it's too small. I hate the yard, it's too big, I don't like to mow. How do you answer those objections?
It's too big. Can you ask them what you said a couple of weeks ago? Oh, can you afford a lawn care service? And then maybe they can take care of the maintenance outside for you.
Sure. It's a fair question. Fair thing to ask them. Yep. What if it's too small?
What are they doing that they need such a big backyard?
There you go. You got it. Exactly, Justin. Ask them how they're using the yard. And if it's gardening, maybe you could show them how to do some vertical gardening. Show them some options.
And there may be a park down the road, you know, if it's, oh, I need to make sure my kids have room to run around, or my dog needs to run around. There may be a dog park around the corner. So, and again, you've got to know your stuff and know your neighborhoods. And it may be that it just is, because there's one thing location. If the yard's too small and they have, very distinct reasons, okay, let's move on to the next one, because that may not be an objection that we can overcome.
But also don't overlook the possibility that there might be land next door or behind or even across the streets that's available for sale. So if you see open land, that may be something that could be acquired. And it may be somebody who wasn't thinking about selling their land until you moved in, and a smart realtor may have gone next door and go, hey, I noticed you've got this 3-acre lot in the middle of the suburb. Is there any chance you'd be willing to sell any of that land? For the right price, they might. You never know. And lots of smart realtors have acquired property like that and had that drawn up separately. Becomes a separate deal that goes with it. So there's lots of ways. Always be thinking, what are the possible solutions? This is a very busy
street.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable around all this traffic or noise.
I feel like that's something that maybe in your original discussion with them, you should probably already have obtained that information. And if you know the location prior, you can let them know that it is on a busy street, and then you don't even have to really go there to see that, because that's kind of something you can't change the traffic pattern on your own. So I feel like even if you don't know that area yourself, maybe as a real estate agent, you do a drive-by ahead of time if that's one of their big needs, to not be on a busy road like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And also, it's always good to get the buyer to have a little skin in the game. The buyer should have already driven by this prospective house. Some people like fall in love with an antique home that just happens to be on a busy road. And so, there's always fencing that's possible, but you got to check with zoning and see, if that is something that's even an option. But does anybody else have any other thoughts or ideas on this sentence?
Sometimes when you're in an older home and you're standing in a room and you can hear the traffic, even though it's not as busy as the street as you thought, it's because the windows need to be upgraded, and you can, recommend and tell them a sort of a general, maybe not go all the way into pricing, but talk to them a little bit about upgrading the windows in order to help with the sound.
Or that house may already have those. When I lived in Olean, I had a big brick 1920s home, huge. And when you went inside, I was on a corner. You couldn't hear anything. Couldn't hear a thing in the house. Could have set a bomb off the street and I wouldn't have been able to hear it. In fact, before I moved out, a house about 6 houses down burned to the ground. I had no idea. I slept right through it. Never heard it. Fortunately, the house also had an alarm system, so if somebody had broken in, I would have heard that, but I couldn't hear anything out on the street. We slept right through the fire. Woke up in the morning, I'm like walking to work because I lived a literal block, and the house was still smoldering, and I'm like, what happened? People are like, you didn't hear that? No, not in my house. So sometimes the house itself will answer the question. What about this one? I don't have 20% for a down payment.
Oh, you forgot the lease one. Do you want to skip that one?
I forgot it. Yep. I can't buy anything until my lease runs out.
Have your lawyer take a look at your lease. Maybe there's ways out of them.
Yeah, well, so Howard Hanna does have a program called Apartment Dwellers. What is it? Apartment Dwellers. It's something that nobody ever uses.
Yeah, we don't generally promote it, but I like your idea, Annette. Is it something you could sublet? How long is your lease up for? How long is it? Well, I still have 2 months. Well, it's gonna take that long to close. Well, it's 3 months. Can you afford to make 1 month's additional payment on your apartment? It might give you some time in the house to get things ready before you actually have to move in. If they can afford the payment, 1 payment on the apartment or 2, it might be okay. And sell it to them as, oh, lucky you, you get to take your time moving in, you get everything cleaned up and maybe do some painting or whatever before you actually have to move in. So
Yeah,
you
that's a
can
good,
use it.
that is a good point, Maggie. A lot of consumers have no idea from beginning to end how long this process can take. So if somebody says, well, I have to wait until my lease runs out, well, how long is that? Well, that's like 6 months. Perfect. It may take you 2 or 3 months to find the perfect house, and then it may take up to 60 plus days to close. So you're right in that time frame, and that to them may not have, those dots may not have been connected.
Yeah,
So now we can now we can talk about the down payment one.
Go ahead.
I don't have 20% for a down payment. What on earth am I to do?
I mean, you probably say, hey, I understand that there's a lot of expenses involved. Why don't you sit down with my mortgage specialist to see exactly what you need, so that you have a plan going forward?
Yep, and Ryan, that's great to deflect them and have them talk to a mortgage specialist, because there are all sorts of programs under the sun that do not require 20% down.
Yep, that's what
so let
Roxanne
them-
is writing that in the chat, actually. Yep.
Yes, let them talk to the expert. And again, most consumers don't realize that they can buy a home without 20% down, just because that's always been the norm that you've heard for forever. And that's so not the case anymore. Don't try and play lender. Make sure to connect them with somebody. But absolutely have them talk to a banker and get them educated on all the different programs that are out there.
Anybody know which program is 0% down? Shauna?
Yeah, Roxanne got it. USDA.
The VA too?
VA too.
USDA, VA can be 0% down. And but USDA, you can go to USDA, I think it's .org. I don't think it's .com. And you can look up to see if a house qualifies by address for a USDA loan, because not all properties do qualify for USDA. But there are programs from 0%, 3%, 5%. What's the lowest percent on a conventional? Anybody know? What, Annette?
3%?
Yeah, 3. It used to be the lowest was 20%, and then it was 10%, and then it went 5%, and then went 3.5%, and now it's 3%. So that's come down. So that's there's a lot out there. Yep, Tim got it too. All right. I just don't know if this is really the best I can do for the money. I don't know if this is the best house for the money.
Tim was asking, I'm assuming, Tim, you're asking about that 3% down. Is that just for new buyers? I don't think so.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Shauna would be able to answer that better than I've been out of the game too long. But I don't think so. I don't think so, Tim. I think that's for anybody who qualifies for the program.
Yeah, it's been a while for myself. Usually first-time home buyers, but it's sometimes income eligible. And it just all depends on the program and the lender.
Right.
Yep. As again, back to Jen's previous statement, get your lender involved as soon as possible. Ryan, you were right on the money there. Get that lender involved. What if, I don't know if this house, is this really like the best I can get with the money that I've got? Because it's everything I've got. Is this the best I can do? Cheryl Walton?
I think there's a couple ways you can answer this. Number one, you can show them some comparables from the area to try and determine together whether it really is the best that they can get for their money at that time. And another thing that you guys have said over and over again is saying, you know, okay, we can go look at some other things, but if you go to sleep tonight and this house sells tomorrow, would you regret, you know, not having made the move? So I think both of those things.
Great.
Yeah, and also, you know, reiterate that this is not a process of selection, it's a process of elimination. There's no perfect house for anybody, even if you were to build it from scratch.
Yeah, and Roxanne is, I'm sorry, I lost track of it. Saying buyers don't always know what they want, and it's a learning experience. Buyers need to learn. So we talk a lot, I've talked a lot about the 80-10-10 rule. You're going to get a house, you start on day one. Most houses are going to fit the 80-10-10 rule. 80% of it you're going to love, 10% of it you're going to hate for the whole time you live there, and 10% of it you're willing to make changes over time. Because nobody gets a 100% house, not even when you build brand new. There's always something you would have changed, because you will have, unless you're, even if you're a billionaire, I'll bet you Bill Gates built that $40 million house and said, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd put a trampoline floor in the living room. That would have been so much fun and so heart healthy. I'm sure there was something that he thought, oh, you know, I can't imagine that in the time that he's lived there since he built that house that he hasn't made some changes, which means he didn't get his 100% house. He wouldn't have had to make any changes. So no one gets their 100% house. So if you're setting the expectation early, this is much easier to deal with. I don't know if this is really the best I can do. I understand your concern. However, is this a house that fits your needs? Is this a house that meets your 80-10-10? And Cheryl was right. Go back to that question. If you lost this house, would you regret it? Because the house that you have in your mind may not exist in our area. I want to think about it.
Well, I think that goes back to what Cheryl just said. If you think about it, it may be gone. And are you okay with that? We can continue to look at houses. However, how would you feel if you woke up and found out that that whole house had been sold and not to you?
So we're going to send you a handout with the PowerPoint later. Label each objection as major, minor, and a smoke screen. Can you identify them? Can you identify the differences? Because it's important for you to know, is that a major one? Here's something about objections you need to understand. Guess what? There are some you can't overcome. You cannot overcome every objection. Sometimes when they say, I hate everything about this house, I don't want to live here, I don't like it, it costs too much money, I hate that location, I hate everything about it. Are those things that you can overcome? No. Accept it and move on. Great. Oh, good. We know what we don't want. Then write what it was that made that house so unwantable, because that's going to prevent you from wasting time on another house. If they set their feet down hard and say, oh, no, I don't like this house. Sometimes it's going to be the driveway. And I've 3 times lived in, twice had the driveway like this. After the first one, I said I'd never do it again. But the second one, the house was so nice and I loved the neighborhood. I bought it anyway. So steep was my second driveway that one time during an ice storm, my pickup truck, I look out the door at something else and I notice the truck is sliding down the hill. And I go running after it. And my husband's like, what are you going to do? Catch it? I was like, oh yeah, what am I going to do? And I'm praying that it doesn't pick up speed and go across the street and into my neighbor's house, because her driveway is flat. But it stopped at the foot of her driveway, thank goodness. but I couldn't get it back up the hill. I parked it on the side of the street because the hill was solid ice. I also couldn't get up the hill, which my husband thought was hilarious. He had to bring me ski poles so that I could have something to get up the hill to the house. So, but that, you know, for me was a major objection, and I still bought the house. So I've many times overcome my major objections. Some people don't. So we're going to give you the handout so you can identify the differences. This one is a really big deal. So-and-so will do it for less. Will you do it for 5%, for 4%, for 3%? If you can't do it for X percent, I'm going to go to somewhere else. We're interviewing several agents and going with one who gives us the best deal. Anybody know how to answer this objection? A variety of you can try to answer this objection. This one's an important one.
You could say that you value yourself as an expert in the field, and because of that, I don't discount my rates because I truly believe that my services are worth this price, and I'm going to do everything to help you sell your home.
It's a smart answer. Anybody else? Yeah, Shauna?
Discount rates come with discount service.
So what does that mean?
So, you know, you may not be able to have, you know, all of the websites listing your property. You may not have staging. You may not be able to do all these open houses that you were thinking of doing every weekend. You may not be able to do the print advertising that you're hoping for, or home of distinction on the Sunday television show. So you lose some benefits.
So always put it in the positive. So say, you know, I appreciate that some people may be discounting. What I'd like to do is I'd love to have the opportunity to interview to show you what I'm going to give you for my full commission. And then show them what you're going to do, which is exactly what you just said. Show them. But I want to interview. I want the opportunity to interview and show you what I'm going to do and why I'm worth it. Also, never ever neglect to go into the MLS for a discount broker. Know your discount brokers. They become very well known in your area. Your manager knows who they are. Look at their list price versus their sell price, because it's probably much different, and it's probably much lower sell price than it is list price. Even in a seller's market, they tend to get less money. Why? Because they stick a sign in the yard and they call it good. So if you know that information, you're powerfully armed. Well, that's great, but did you know that they list they traditionally get 17% less than what they list for? Oh. So my commission, those 2%, I'm going to get you 15% more. But you have to know the actual numbers. But if you know the actual numbers and those averages, you can use those numbers to your advantage. Numbers are your friend in real estate. And the data is all there. It's a little work on your part, but the data is all there. Ask your managers, who are the big discount brokers in your area? Jen?
So, true story. There is an agent in the capital region who has not been an agent for all that long, probably 5 years. She has never taken a listing for less than 7%. She believes in every fiber of her being that she is worth absolutely positively every penny of that. And she exudes that. Now, this is a human being who does not come across as arrogant or boastful in any way, shape, or form, but she feels so strongly about her worth. She also has no hesitation to get up and walk out the door when they say, no, we want you to discount your commission. She packs her stuff up and shakes their hand, says, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And she walks out the door. what happens more often than not? They list with a discount broker, the house doesn't sell, they end up calling her and listing for 7%, and she gets the job done. She's a super hard worker, but at the end of the day, always be willing to walk away. And I know that's easy for me to say, sitting here with 20 years of experience, but have that ingrained in your head, because if somebody is giving you a hard time about this now, what kind of a client are they going to be throughout the whole transaction? So just keep that in mind. Yes, you need to know your value proposition inside and out and own it, but don't be afraid to walk away, because I tell you what, if you cave at this meeting, and you can tell this to a potential seller, if I cave on my commission with you right now, how great a negotiator am I going to be on your behalf when I'm working for you negotiating with the buyer's agent? And just let that sit there for a moment. And again, you all are new, so this is something that you really, really, really need to practice. And so you know your worth. Always be willing to get up and walk away.
Jens?
Also, they're losing time if they sign up with a discount broker and they most likely will not sell the house. They're losing a lot of time, and then they have to get over to us then later, and then you sign another contract for this many months. So they're losing time, and the time, it's their money they're not getting quick enough either.
Right. And that's
just
another thing you can also look up with the discount brokers. You can also look up days on market.
Right.
And that's information that you can share. And if you already know it before you're going into any listing appointment, who your discount brokers are, what their list to sell price is, and what their days to market are, if that name comes up, you're prepared. You've already got it in your arsenal of information. Having data is your best friend. And Jen said it, saying, hey, if I can't negotiate for myself, how well do you think I'm going to negotiate for you? That really snaps people awake. They're like, what?
I have a question.
If they're not negotiating for their own pocket. Yeah, Lisa?
Okay, so overall, we set our commission rate, our brokerage doesn't?
Ask your manager.
Okay, well, I literally had a meeting with my mentor this morning, and from what I gathered from her, it's kind of straight across the board in the average price, quote unquote.
I don't know that because I don't see every listing contract.
Right.
So there's,
I would have a conversation with your manager also.
There's probably a local in your office minimum for your office. You can always ask for more.
Okay.
And if you may not be able to ask for less without permission from your manager, but you can always ask for more. No one will ever stop you for asking for more.
Okay.
But how are you going to back it up? What are you going to provide? So don't just offer, don't go out there and say, well, I'm going to charge 10%. That probably isn't going to fly. But talk to your manager.
And
well,
again,
I mean, from our perspective, we're inexperienced, but I'm looking at the positive side. Those that are experienced, that are juggling multiple listings, not that I'm going to go for 7 or 8% because, right now I've only got one buyer, but we can have more time to devote to individuals than people who are juggling multiple listings and buyers. Might be worth it.
Jen was right first, talk to your manager, find out how you can charge. There is a minimum for our offices. However, you can ask for more, but you got to back it up, but ask your manager how they handle it and talk to them about it. If you're going below that minimum, you have to have permission.
And again, explain to the consumer, the potential seller, how all that percentage gets divvied up. Because they think that you're getting 5, 6, 7% in your pocket. So it's, it's a good idea to sort of explain to them that in our local marketplace, the buyer's broker gets 2.5%. Sometimes the local marketplace, that's 3%. And
In
that's
Rochester, it's 3.
okay. In the
That's
capital
what we
region,
discussed this morning, how little, and then there's like this fee for their
So,
marketing and their advertising, how little.
I'm going to give you an illustration. I do this for clients all the time. I take a piece of paper. Let's see if I can get you to see my piece of paper with my virtual background. It's a pain in the neck. All right, so I take a piece of paper. I saw it for a second. Take a piece of paper. Then you're going to fold it in half. You're going to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this represents, let's just say 6% because it's an even number. I'm going to rip that piece of paper in half. So it's got 2 halves. I'm going to say the seller side gets one side, buyers get the other. Oh, finally, I can see it. So I've got half the piece of paper. To say, okay, now we live in New York State and I have the federal government. I'm an independent contractor, so I have to pay my own taxes. So I'm going to take a third. That goes to the government. I work with a broker, and my broker takes a big fee. I'm going to rip it in another third. Then I have to pay for my gas, my sign, my advertising, and whatever else. And that's what you get. And that's a true statement. I had a friend, I listed her house. It was $240,000. She did the math. She said, oh my gosh, you're going to make this amount of money. I said, oh, wouldn't that be grand? Boy, I'd love that. Let me tell you the truth. And I took my piece of paper out. She goes, oh, that's not so much, is it? No, but I worked my tail off for it.
That's the time to ask for 10%.
You know
what? The agent who gets 7% on all of her listings, she's listed $50,000 homes. She's listed $1,002,000 home and still got 7%. She said, I'm worth every penny, regardless of what the value of the home is. And she is not afraid to walk out, but she has it ingrained in her what her value is. So I will, and that is a true story. And we're running out of time.
Yep. So overcoming your brokerage fees, objections, be prepared to discuss your brokerage fee. You need to know it, so you need to talk to your manager. Be confident. Effectively communicate. Know your competition.
If you click through, Maggie, it's
is it going to give me the words? Okay,
There you
know
go.
your value. I was wondering where the words were. Be confident in your value and effectively communicate your value. Thank you. Know your competition, their track record, research neighborhood stats, average day on market, sales price versus list price. Know and utilize your stats and your office stats. We just talked about all of that. Have clear marketing plan. Using the Howard Hanna differentiators, because we have so much more than most people. There's a sheet in Hanna presentations where there's nice little check marks of all the things that we do compared to other brokerages, and you'll recognize them by the color of the signs. We are not a discount broker. We are not. We certainly are not. Tim says, have clear marketing plan, and then be pre-prepared and ready to go. So be prepared to go and talk to people about what we have to offer that's going to help them, that's going to help you, help them sell their house. And with that, then we have, go over this slide. If you guys have questions about it, bring it back to us, because I want to give you a few minutes break before we start negotiation. And you have these sheets in your ebook. And Ryan, you said you got yours, Kelly. I'll send you yours later today. So we're going to go take a, how long break, Jen? 2:40, be back in your seats?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
All right.
2:40, everybody be back here.
Okay, where is my thing? Let's stop recording for a minute. Full sharing. There we go.
Marvelous.
Marvelous, she says.
Marvelous.
I'm eating my blue candy. It's actually blueberries.
Okay, can you see it?
I can.
Right.
The art of negotiation.
And you're recording?
Not yet, I will. Sure. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, there we go. Nope, I'm recording. Nope. Okay. Yep. So I'll have to get all that out.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. So next up, art of negotiation. We all need to be sure to become good negotiators. Always go into meetings or negotiations with a positive attitude. Tell yourself you're going to make this the best deal for all parties. I think that's a great quote, especially because in a negotiation, not everybody is going to be happy necessarily, but everybody needs to be satisfied with their outcome. So what is a negotiation? A strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable. Like I said, not everybody has to be happy, but everybody needs to find that it is acceptable. By negotiating, all involved parties try to avoid arguing, but agreed to reach some form of compromise. Compromise is always best. Certainly there are personalities out there who feel that they must win, which we'll address that in a little bit. And negotiations almost always involve some sort of give and take, which means that one party will always come out on top of the negotiation. And I sort of disagree with that statement. I think I use the lazy Susan analogy, you know, when you have like a lazy Susan on top of a table, the round little thing that can move back and forth. Use that analogy with people in a negotiation. Basically, you know, I'll take the ketchup, but I'll put the salt and pepper back on and I'll turn it over to you. So there should be a give and take with all the parties on both sides to really have a successful negotiation. And again, not everybody has to walk away feeling like, woohoo, this was awesome. It was so much fun and everybody's happy, happy, happy. Everybody needs to be satisfied with the outcome. I think that that's a good way to approach a healthy negotiation. And people understandably aim to achieve the best possible outcome for their position. However, the principles of fairness, seeking mutual benefit, and maintaining a relationship are the keys to a successful outcome. So again, everybody wants to come away from a negotiation feeling okay. I mean, how many of us have ever bought a car and had to negotiate the deal? It can, you know, buying a car can be so stressful. And I always hated that. You know, how many times have you gone to buy a car, done your research, have an agreed upon figure in your head, gone there and said, this is what I'm going to pay for the car. Maggie used to sell cars, so she can put her 2 cents in on this. The last car I bought, actually, it was a great experience. But cars in the past, I had gotten up to walk away over and over and over again. And that's, you know, one of the premises of negotiating is always be willing to walk away. So I think that at the end of the day, yep, you buy a car, you get the car, hopefully you're semi-satisfied with the price that you wound up paying for it. Maybe you got something extra thrown in to make you feel better about paying this huge amount of money for these cars. But you know, you always want to feel that you got a good deal. And so it's our job to help your client feel that they got a decent deal. Maggie.
I was going to say that the car and the house analogy only goes so far. In a car dealership, you can go down the street and there's another car and there's a whole lot full of cars that are all exactly the same color, same style, or if they can find one and they can get one from another dealership. Houses are not like that. And in a seller's market, In a dealership, when you can walk away, you know you've reached the bottom price. But if you walk back, they'll say, okay, let's write it up. In a house, you can't do that. In a seller's market, maybe in a buyer's market, you can. Probably in a buyer's market, you can come back and say, okay, I'm willing to write at the price that you're willing to take. In a seller's market, if you get into that type of negotiation, your buyers will be looking for a house for all eternity. So you have to make sure they understand this is different. Every house is more or less unique, unless you're in a new build. But if you're in an existing home market and they like that home in that spot in that condition with those things, they need to become flexible and not rigid. Because by the time you can walk away, someone else will have made an offer that's already accepted and your people are out. So do you guys understand that? Subtle? It's a subtle difference, but it's a major difference. You guys get that? Okay. So
and I think it's important to educate the buyer in negotiating and understanding that if you walk away, there is a good chance you don't get this house. And you know what, maybe it takes them losing a house or two before they're like, you know, holy crow, I now see how this whole thing works in this type of market. So Maggie and I found this article, and when you get sent the PowerPoint, I believe this link for the article is a live link, Maggie, to the article.
It is, yep.
And you know, the majority of realtors out there are female. So, you know, it's just interesting. Who would you think is a better negotiator? Someone who is warm or someone who is firm? And regardless of whether you're negotiating anything, you know, the price of a hotel room to a car to a house. And, you know, it's a very interesting article to read because, you know, a lot of people are like, and a lot of women, I think, naturally say, well, we just all want to get along. We want everybody to get along. So in our negotiating style is just that. We want to try and keep everybody happy. And in the long run, firm is best. And yes, you can be kind and firm and come out with the best side of the negotiation. So it's not always being like, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them feel badly. I want them to like me. All of those emotions you're going to have, but just realize, and this was a huge study that was done, so it's a very interesting article. But you know, at the end of the day, you are working for your buyers and you are working for your sellers. After the transaction is over, that's when you can be their friend. Right now, you need to be their firm negotiator. And I think that that's a very important distinction to make.
Yeah, we were both surprised by the article. We expected it to go one way and it went the other. And the firm, one of the reasons the firm agent was preferred is they felt like if there wasn't a little pushback, they overspent, and I got something for too little. So that firmness, that little bit of push, allowed people to feel like they'd gotten the true value, where otherwise they felt like somebody rolled over. And I was like, oh, I can sort of see that. So anyway, it's a great article, and you'll have it when you get the PowerPoint.
Yep. So this is an illustration of the 9 tips of when you're negotiating a home for your clients. That sentence doesn't really make much sense. But you know what? Educate yourself, educate your buyers, and gather all the information. That's part of your job. That's why we all get paid. What we get paid is all of the work that gets done behind the scenes. So, you know, do the big information gather ahead of time. Be clear and direct on your offer. And know when to walk away. Again, research, research, research. You got to know the market. You have to know the subject property. And you need to know all of the other subject properties around that one house that your buyers want to put an offer in on. The next step is difficult, to keep emotions out of it. This is a very emotional transaction that your clients are going to go through. It is your job to be the steady Eddie, keep them rising above the crazy emotions that it's a roller coaster of emotions that they will go through. Who on this call has bought their own house? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, so quite a few of you. So do you remember that emotional roller coaster that you were on? Even in the best of circumstances of buying just like your dream house, the emotional roller coaster is always going to be there. You as the agent need to be the calm in their storm. More often than not, in transactions where there's a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, the agents are the ones fueling the emotional fire. And it's so not the place to be, especially during a negotiation. You need to be the calm in their storm and stay positive. Don't let them forget why they're going through all of this pain and agony. Refer them back to their why, but always have a plan B. It sort of goes hand in hand with the know when to walk away. If a negotiation is getting so crazy hot, explain to your buyers to say, you know what, there's loads of houses out there. Well, maybe not loads right now, but there are other homes to go look at and go see. And sometimes people need to be reminded of that fact that, oh my gosh, this is the only house in the universe and I have to get this house. Well, what kind of a negotiation position does that put those buyers in? Not a great one. So they should always have the plan B. Okay, this is an 85% house. Let's go find another 85% house. And know the money, know their closing costs. That's where you want to have a great conversation and relationship with their banker. Hopefully they're using someone who you know. If they're not using someone who you know, get to know them, pick up the phone, introduce yourself, say, hey, can you have a conversation with my buyers so they know exactly the kind of money that they need in order to buy this house? Because there is absolutely nothing worse than a buyer going into contract on a home and then realizing, like, what do you mean? I've got money for a down payment, but then I need money on top of that for closing costs? Yes, you do. And a lot of times people don't know, they don't realize that. They're like, well, I've got the 5% down. What else do I need to pay for? Well, a lot of different stuff. So work very closely with the mortgage person so that they can be sure that everybody's on the same page, and it makes for a much stronger negotiating position. And, along those same lines, when they're looking at a home, what type of repairs are needed? So that's where you have your inspection done. So you know what you're looking at. Is it the roof has 50-year shingles and it's in year 45? That roof is pretty much at the end of its lifespan. How much does it cost to replace a roof? Have them go get estimates. Something as simple as having painters come in and paint. All those things that you need to remind them of so that they have the clearest picture going forward. Maggie, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
I think you got it.
All right. So the process of a negotiation, which sort of is reiterating a little bit from the last slide, but the preparation is huge. If you feel like you've got a strong case in a negotiation, you're probably going to come out in a winning, stronger position for your clients. Discussion, clarification of goals, negotiate towards a win-win outcome. Not every person on the other side of a negotiation is going to agree with that statement. Some personality types, like we talked about in the prior classes, are going to want to win. And if there's a winner, then that means that there has to be a loser. So not every personality is okay with a win-win. Ultimately, yes, that is what you want. But some personalities are like, nope, I'm not giving in. I am not. I mean, you can have a negotiation where you're literally $5,000 apart. And you'll have a buyer or a seller saying, I'm not going another dime over. That's when you need to pull out your mortgage calculator and show them the difference. How much is $5,000 over the course of a 30-year mortgage? It's
Does
not
anybody
much.
does anybody remember the math? We did it last week. How much per thousand? It's the average. $5, Cheryl. Yep. So how many at $5,000? How much more a month?
25.
That's it. 25
Did I do that right?
bucks. Yep.
Right. So remind folks that, you know, what you're being so adamant about is $25 a month. And I can't tell you how many kitchen tables I've sat at that when you say that to them, they're like, oh, well, if that's all, then forget it. Yeah, we got a deal. And it's, you know, to break it down that way can be a real eye opener for people. But there are those people out there who are just like, I've got to win at all costs. Well, you saying that you have to win may not get your kids into that school district you want. So again, it's your job as primo negotiator to make sure they don't forget about their why, whether they're on the buy side or the sell side, and know the numbers and bring it right down to the nitty gritty to say, this is what you're fighting over. Is it really worth losing the sale or losing that house?
And don't forget, it's not insignificant to point out to a seller that the first buyer you have often makes the best offer. And that every day that goes by in any market, the house is more likely to go down in value. And it doesn't go down by hundreds of dollars, it goes down by thousands of dollars. So it's better to work with the person in front of you and to work that deal, massage that deal to try to get it to close. Before, as I've said to you before, deals don't die on my lap. We never say no. We counter until we get what we need to get. But we're talking about reasonable. When you're talking about that $25 a month to the buyer, don't hesitate to say to the buyer, for the seller, it's $5,000 cash in hand at closing. It's going to help them close and move on to their next house. For you, it's $25 a month, and you may never pay 30 years worth. You may only be here for 5 years. So it's not even that amount of money. So don't be afraid to break those down. And don't be afraid to say it's $5,000 for the seller in their pocket, because they can understand that, they can relate to that. But for you, it's only this, and you may never make 30 payments.
30 years worth.
30 years worth, thank you. That's 360 payments or some other big gigantic number. Anyway, break down the numbers. Don't be afraid to do it.
And again, you know, the goal is to come to an agreement, and then you need to have the implementation or the course of action to get through to the closing table. So what steps do you need to take? Prep is the key. And this is, you know, these are the conversations that you need to have. the questioning, the listening, and the clarifying. Why are we going through this process, whether it's a buyer or a seller? And it's, it's not an easy process, but I think once, excuse me, people understand the process and know how it's supposed to go, more or less, they will be more confident going through. So clarification of goals, identify or establish from some common ground. So here you have, a buyer and a seller, and your, I don't know, $10,000 apart. It's a great exercise to take the focus away from the money, that difference, and really zero in on what you have in common with this purchase offer. So you can say, all right, the money, sure, we're still $10,000 apart, but what can we agree on? We can agree on the deposit money. We can also agree on a closing date. So that makes this really long, like this. I love this step graph on the slide. It starts shortening the start to the goal by pretty good size increments, so that your buyers can say, all right, we've got that little pesky $10,000 we're going to work on, but right now, what do we agree on? So instead of being this far apart, we're really only this far apart. So it makes it a little bit more manageable for them psychologically to say, wait, we do actually agree on quite a few things. So maybe we can then come to terms just on that pesky little money piece. And don't forget that not every transaction comes down to the money piece. It could maybe come down to the terms. You just don't ever know. So again, that's where you really, really need to have some great communication and clarification. So it's an essential part of the negotiation process. You don't ever want to have misunderstandings during a negotiation. And this is where it's so, so important to not try and do a negotiation via email or text. Just don't do it. And at least do it through a phone call. And best to be face-to-face, or even in a Zoom platform or Teams or FaceTime on your phone. Because, somebody can say, well, yeah, whatever, I guess I agree. But it's like, they're not comfortable with that decision. So don't assume anything. So a win-win outcome is achieved when both sides feel they have gained something positive through the process of negotiation. And both sides feel their point of view has been taken into consideration. That statement is all true. In a perfect negotiation, you want to feel like, oh, my side won, and you want the other side to also have that same feeling. That may not always be the case, but I will say, and I don't know what kind of science we have to back this up, but I would say ask any realtor who's been in the business longer than a week and ask them, is it really true? Is the first offer almost always the best offer? From experience, yes, it is. From buying and selling my own homes, did I usually take the first offer? Yes. For whatever reason, it's when a house newly hits the market, those buyers are raring to go. They're going to put absolutely positively their best foot forward. So, okay, your house may have been listed for $325,000. The day it's listed, you get a phone call from a buyer's agent saying, my people are writing up an offer. They're with me right here. We're writing up the offer for $300,000. I know that that's less than what you're asking for, but I've got the comps and blah, blah, blah. And you hang up the phone and you're like, oh my gosh, my sellers, I don't know, they wanted full price. So you can always go back and say, well, we're getting an offer, but it's for 300, not 325. I'm telling you right now, what's going to happen if they don't take it is the house is going to sit. And then 3 months later, they're going to reduce the price to $300,000. I know, because it's happened over and over and over and over and over and over again. So it is important that you impart that wisdom to sellers, that really and truly your first offer is almost always your best offer. And I don't have any scientific backing for that, except for that when a new listing hits the market, it is new and fresh, and especially in this market, people are clamoring, but people know what a home is worth. And just because your seller thinks it's worth 325, the market may be saying otherwise.
And at the same time, remember that you can always counter. So if they're like, we're not going to accept it, I've already told my people, it's not going to die in our lap. What if we counter? And I like to go 50% of the way if I can convince them to at least go halfway. And I say any motion shows an agreeability to working with them to come to a happy conclusion. So how far can we move? Can we go to the midpoint? Can we go to the point between 300 and 325, which is what, 312.5, right? Can we go to 312,500? I'd be more comfortable with 315. Okay, let's write 315. What did we get them to do? Come down $10,000, where 5 seconds ago they were only going to sell it for 325. By just asking them to go to the halfway point, sometimes they'll come back to another number. Like, I'd be more comfortable with 315. Great, let's put 315 in there. I don't ask any more questions. Like, are you sure? No, let's put 315 in there.
And be careful that a lot of times the easy way out is to say, oh, let's just split the difference. Be careful with that. You will have realtors who say that to you all the time. Oh, let's just split the difference. Let's just split the difference. There's a lot of numbers between 300 and 325, and it may not be in the best interest of your client to split the difference.
And they might say, I'm comfortable with 325. And we say, fine, we'll counter at 325 and see if they'll come up, if that's what they want to do. But you've got to educate them first. They might come to 320. They might come to 315. They might come to 318. You don't know. They may have some magic number in their head that you don't know about. It might be 314.12 because that's their lucky number. Who knows? It's weird sometimes. So, but if you're asking the questions, but preface this, again, set that expectation that you're never going to say no, you're going to counter until you can't. It works. It works. People will work with you. Very rarely will you get someone that truly does not understand the value of the house, does not understand what the market is telling them, even if they get whammed in the face over and over again with what's reality. And eventually it's best to walk away from them. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, and just be aware. This doesn't happen too often, but when you counter, it means that your last offer is now off the table. It's been rejected. So I would say it doesn't happen too often, but just be like, okay, well, we were only kidding. We'll pay 320 instead of 300. And they may say no. And also understand that there are also a lot of potential buyers out there who think they're going to get a deal. And, oh, I want to lowball this offer. Yes, you have to present every offer that has been bona fide and written up. But again, counsel people that could potentially piss somebody off. and the seller could say, no, I'm not even working with you. You know, a $300,000 house, and you put an offer in for 200,000. When the house is all day long worth 300 in the market. Yep, you've got to present every offer, but that may be some educating of that buyer to say you're going to alienate every seller out there if you continue to do this. And frankly, I can't continue to work with you because it's going to wreck my reputation. And that's okay to say. In this market that we're in right now, it's, you know, it's silly. So again, you need to be pretty confident in knowing your numbers to be able to have that conversation with anybody. But keep that in mind because that can be a real slippery slope. So course of action, you know, so once you've come to terms, you're going to have the earnest money deposit, goes through attorney approval in New York State, you have your inspections done, and then you get your commitment date and closing. It all looks so simple on this screen.
It does, but it's not.
And so, I mean, that's where you earn your money is at the point of a fully executed, when a purchase offer turns into a contract. That's where the hard work begins. Be the realtor everybody wants to work with. You all are new and you will already be forming your reputation as a realtor. All of us are members of local real estate boards. I'll be climbing on top of my soapbox right now. They're all a relatively small community. I know like GCAR in the capital region, I think has, I don't know, 3,500 members, something like that. So just be aware that your fellow realtors will get to know you for better or for worse. Try and make that reputation be for better. But you don't want to have the reputation for always lowballing sellers, trying to beat up sellers, trying to be the one who wins so that somebody else loses. Your reputation will be cemented sooner than you realize. So just be aware, treat everyone cordially. I think that that's always smart in any type of business, but certainly with this one, ask for help, ask for information. Absolutely nothing is wrong with that. I will suggest that once the whole COVID stuff is in our rearview mirror, start going to brokers opens. Does everybody know what brokers opens are? A broker's open is where, say, I've got a listing and it went live today on a Monday. Next Tuesday is our office meeting day in the capital region. I'm going to hold that new listing open. I'm going to have a broker's open, which is basically an open house for all the realtors in my community, not just my brokerage, but the whole community to come in and see my new listing. Because it's a great way to get to know your fellow agents in and out of Howard Hanna. It's a great way for people to see your face, talk to you, get to know you a little bit. My one advice is if you're going to do a broker's open, maybe partner with somebody at First Priority to help you out with that. Don't do a broker's open unless you have food because realtors love nothing more than to eat. And that you'll gain a reputation if you do a broker's open and you don't ever serve food. They'll come once and then they won't come again. And you'll have the reputation of being, she's that realtor who has those broker's opens and no food. And it's funny, and you ask anybody in your office and they'll probably all have the same tale from across the state, I would think. Brokers opens are a big deal here in the capital region. Yes, consumers, the general public can come in to brokers opens. There's usually during the week, during the day. But it's a nice way to showcase a listing because you just never know if a realtor comes through. They're not just there for lunch, they're actually there to see the property. You can have every realtor who comes through the door fill out a questionnaire about the house. It takes a bit of the onus off of you as the listing agent to say, hey, you know, I had the brokers open, I had 25 local realtors come through, and everyone's price opinion feels that we've listed the house a little bit too high. And here's why. It takes a little bit of the onus off you to say that there were 25 other local experts who came through and saw this house, and you know, these are their comments. So it can be a nice feedback to bring back to a seller when we're not in this crazy market, which this market will change. You know, I think when interest rates start to creep up just a little, you know, everything in this industry is cyclical, and this too will pass, for better and for worse. It's actually better for our industry to have a little bit more of a balanced market. But, you know, just be aware that your reputation is everything locally in the marketplace.
Yeah, so a couple things that I would add is, if at a broker's open, if you have somebody else in your neighboring office to you, Howard, Hannah, if you have the lunch and somebody else has dessert, it's a great way to get people to go from one house to the other for the broker's open. For open houses, I've seen people who've had like an appetizer at one house, like a, what do they call those meals when you go from house to house? And then a little bit heavier meal at the next one, and then wine and cheese at the third one, and dessert at the fourth one. And it's a great way to get the public through an open house. They come and they get different stages of meals. Can we do that during COVID? No, but we won't be in COVID forever. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's a train. I think it's the sun. So I think we're really making some progress in those ways. I was in an open house with an agent yesterday, just helping her, so she'd have a second person there. And one of the people came in, but their agent wasn't with him. He mentioned his name, and we both said, "Oh, we love him. He used to work with us. Please tell him hello from both of us." We miss seeing him. We hadn't seen him in a while. And he looked so surprised because he doesn't work for Howard Hanna anymore. And it's like, we didn't care. Speak well of people. It's nothing, it doesn't take anything away from you to say, oh, they're a great agent. You've got a great person taking care of you. It's not hurting you in any way, shape, or form. It's okay to be complimentary of other agents from other realtors, other brokers. It's fine. And that they'll remember that you were nice. That's what they'll remember, is that you were complimentary of somebody else. And it's a nice thing to be the person that people are happy to see and that they want to work with you. So be the person everybody wants to work with. Go ahead, Jen.
Negotiating is probably the least understood and the least taught skill in our industry. I would say it's the most lacking skill of all realtors out there. So anything that you can do to become a better negotiator will benefit you and your clients. There's all sorts of good books out there about negotiating. Role playing is huge. I mean, the biggest negotiation that you have to worry about is the negotiation of your commission. And I would say that that's something that you all should go to school on, to know your value proposition inside and out, and be willing to walk away, because those people who continuously discount their commission, they're devaluing their worth. And, you know, this industry is hard enough as it is. And I know, you know, you can be sitting there saying, yeah, but a listing's a listing. I'm going to take it at all costs. I disagree with that. I think that, again, you need to cement your reputation as a professional. And Howard Hanna is not a discount broker. We are a full service broker. We bring an awful lot to the table. I mean, I was thinking over the weekend, all of the stuff that Maggie and I have talked about over these last couple of weeks is invaluable information for you all. And no other broker has this. So I know we're throwing gobs of information at you. And so, if everybody can take away 20% of the nuggets, you'll be ahead of the game. But I hope that everybody goes to school on this one, especially because you don't want to be known as the person out there discounting your commission. And we're not supposed to discuss commissions, but it'll get out. And it doesn't do you any good as a business person. And every situation is going to be different. You're not necessarily going to take $1 million listing at the same rate necessarily as you would a $200,000 listing. Some people do, some people don't. But just, keep that in mind. Land is always different. Land's always more. Land is the 10%. Who wants to do 10%? Gents, start doing land. It's all 10% all day long. But, get with your manager, role play with people, ask them, like, how do you get around those objections about somebody trying to discount your commission? Ask and get some really good word tracks that you really need to practice. And always be willing to walk away from a nasty seller or a nasty buyer for that matter. And again, you think, oh, it's easy for you to say to, walk away from a piece of business. Some pieces of business are not worth having. People can be mean and nasty and yell and swear and scream and jump up and down. And I never would work with people like that. Yes, everybody's emotions are high, but you be the professional and rise above it. And you really can't go wrong.
That said, I've only walked away from one seller. I finished the terms of my original contract, but I wouldn't take the listing back. So it doesn't happen most of the time. It's really not most of the kind scenario. There are very few people you're going to want to walk away from. If you're wanting to walk away from everybody, you need to talk to your manager about what's happening, because that shouldn't be what's happening.
Yeah,
so you need to make sure your expectations are realistic and you're handling the situations gracefully.
Yeah, you don't want to become the sales prevention team. The goal is to have sales close, not say, oh no, you don't want to sell your house, or oh no, you don't want to buy this house. That it may be you feeling super uncomfortable with the industry that you chose, and that's okay too.
So we have a couple of things we're going to go over that are a little more practical. I need two people to play a quick game with me. It's sort of like tic-tac-toe. Can I get two volunteers play a game with me? It's a negotiation game. Come on, I just need two of you.
I'll do it.
All right, Lisa. All right, and Ryan McNabb. All right, so let me, hang on, I got a draw here. I should have done this before. Let's see, where's my draw? There it is. All right, so I'm going to draw a line.
And everybody might want to put their, you got to make sure that you can see Maggie's whiteboard.
Do you want me to move it to the other screen? Oh, you're right, side to side.
Yeah, you just got, everybody's got to move everybody's pictures to the right. And I'm going to.
Sorry, I'm trying to do this with a mouse. So this is fun. This is not even, but that's okay. Let's see if I can make this one a little longer. So this is basically like tic-tac-toe. So Lisa, do you want to be circles or X's?
Circle.
All right. Actually, do you want to be a star or a heart? Because that'll be easier. I can use a shape.
A heart for Valentine's Day.
All right. And so Ryan, you'll be a star. So Lisa, where would you like to, here's the rules to this game. It's a negotiation game. Either of you can to win, you have to have 2 rows, either across or down. Okay? So
Okay.
Lisa, where do you want your heart, your first heart?
3rd row over, 2nd one down.
Okay. Let me get my heart. All right. Ryan?
Go with the top left,
Okay.
very left.
Right there. Actually, let me change that stamp. There we go. Oh, sorry. I got to get rid of this one. Clear. Clear my drawings. Oh, no. Crap on a cracker. All right, let me try this again. Hang on. I'll get you one.
This is so much easier when we're in a classroom.
It is.
I won, Ryan. Let's just, we'll call it a draw.
Yeah, it's not that good. Not that easy.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, let's try this again. One. I think I'm getting better at my lines. Maybe not. Maybe I'm getting worse. All right, Lisa was 3rd row, 2 down, stamp there. Okay, Ryan was there. Okay, now I figured out how to do it. Okay, Lisa, where's your next one going?
3rd row down, 4th over.
3rd row down. Wait a minute. 3rd row down. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, got it. Ryan?
That's interesting. I'll go one over to the right there. Yeah.
We're here?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, Lisa?
Are we making diagonals or just up and down?
You have to have 2 rows across or 2 rows down.
Oh, geez. Oh, okay. Well, I screwed that up. All right. Okay, let's go 3rd row down, 3rd row in.
Okay, 3rd and 3rd. Yep, Ryan, or yes, Ryan?
Yeah, right. Right. I guess the right at the top row, the 2nd one over.
Okey-doke. Lisa?
Right where your pointer is.
Okay.
3rd row down, 2nd over.
That one?
Yep.
Okay, Ryan?
First row, 3rd over.
1st row, 3rd, right here?
Yeah.
First row, 3rd down.
1st row, 3rd down. Ryan?
I guess first row, the 4th over.
1st row, 4th over. Oh, you know what, you guys? I put one too many rows. You haven't put anything in here, so I'm going to clear. So this one, so don't worry about this row. It should only be this group of squares. I went one too many. So you haven't put any there, so we're good. Oh, so Ryan would have won 1 row. So, but you got to have, and Lisa has 1 row. But can anybody get another row? Yes, you could, if I suppose. There's one left. So whose turn is it? Lisa, is it yours?
Yeah, okay, then, hold on.
You each
Let's
have one
see.
row, but you need two.
Right. I'm gonna go. Lord.
Don't make me pay the Jeopardy movie. Just pick one. Music.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Bottom row. You said the last row we're not doing, or the bottom row?
This
we're not
one is
doing?
the one on the
Okay.
very far right we're not using.
Okay. So bottom row, first one.
Okay. Ryan?
Bottom row, second one.
Okay, so no one can win now, right?
Right, because we're that good.
Yeah, so you're both trying to win. In a negotiation, what could you have done? All I said
Asked
is
Ryan
this is a
to not.
negotiation, and to win, you have to have two rows, either up or down. So how could you have negotiated a win for both of you?
We could have talked about this before we put our stars or
Told
hearts.
them the price you want.
You could have just said, I'll take the two top rows and you take the two bottom. I'll take the two on the left, you take the two on the right. This is what happens in a negotiation when realtors are working together on a deal. This is what they lose sight of. They lose sight of the fact that they are negotiating. You are not trying to win. It is so hard to negotiate if you're trying to overcome the other person. If
Good,
you are
valuable game.
working to negotiate, you have conversation. It's a really good illustration of how easy it is. I mean, how easy is it? All you had to say was, I'll take the two on the top if you take the two on the bottom. I'll take the two on the left if you take the two on the right, or you take the two on the right and I'll take the two on the left.
Wow.
And then we both get what we want. Solved.
Okay.
I've never once had anybody do it. I've been doing it for a couple of years now. No group has ever figured this out. And I always start with, this is a negotiation. To win, you have to have two rows in this direction or that direction.
But both want the best deal for their client as well, too. So it's always a little competition there, I think.
Right, but who am I winning? If there's no outcome, no one can win. How is that in the best interest of my client? So you could play this game with your clients before you go to negotiate. Before you go to negotiate, let's do an illustration. Or I tried this with you before, and this is almost impossible, but if you were standing up and you put our hand out and we put it on the right shoulder of the person across from us, each of us have a hand on the other person's shoulder, and I say both take a step forward. You're moving against each other, right? You've created tension. If I say negotiate your way out of it, what do you have to do? What's the conversation? If you bend your arm, I'll bend my arm. If you put your arm down, I'll put my arm down. And then we can both move forward. You can try that with a client and let them know, especially if they're feeling aggressive, show them this is how a negotiation works. If we work with them, everyone gets to move forward.
Well done.
So I often say to my sellers and buyers, because they come to loggerheads a lot, people want more for their house. People want to spend less for their new house. I say to the other realtor, I have the buyer, you have the seller. I have the seller, you have the buyer. What can we do to move this forward? What can we do to make this close? What can we do to work together to get our clients to work together? That conversation allows me to get deals to come together. And I've had deals that have been very far apart. I had a house that was listed for 325. The first offer we got from a buyer was 285. No, I'm sorry, it was listed at 340. She came in at 285. That is a huge difference. We sold it at 300,000 cash, no inspections. We gently moved toward the close. I had a good relationship with the buyer's agent, somebody I'd worked with previously. Said your people want the house, my person wants to sell the house. What can we do to move this together? We use those numbers. We use the illustration of it's going to cost you this much per month, except that they were cash, so we couldn't use that. But it's this much in her cash in hand for her to move forward to get it built to her new home. And for you, it's cash out of hand, so we understand that. For her, we had to say it's a cash offer, no inspections. She had a well, she had a septic. So there was possibilities for things to be found that might need a repair or replacement. So you can have those conversations. So you can move people. And we moved them. She was going to drop. The reason I said 325 is because she was ready to drop the price because we had been on market for 40 days. I knew it was overpriced, but it's where she wanted to start. And we had a deal that after so many days we're going to drop. She said she wanted it to wait 6 weeks. I was like, okay, it's your house. We waited, but so she was just about to drop it to 325. So mentally she was at 325. So we brought it from that to the 300 point. And everybody felt like they won at the end. Everybody felt good. So that's something you can do for a negotiation. When we're live and in person, we do this seller's agenda and buyer's agenda thing where we have one of you pretends to be the seller, one of you pretends to be the buyer, one of you is the seller's agent, one of you is the buyer's agent. But one of the parts of this deal is there's in this scenario, we have a home that's selling and there's a big play set in the backyard that the seller's dad made, and he's now passed away, and she wants to move it and take it with her. There's also a chandelier in the dining room that they want to take with them. The buyer wants the play set and the chandelier. And this is outside the price part. So how would you, as a listing agent, you've received a purchase offer and they want one of those big wooden play sets with, concreted into the ground. They want to take that with them. And they want to take the chandelier that's in the dining room. So what are some things as a listing agent, how would you approach that?
It's hard for the sentimental value of the play set, to make the
You're the selling agent. You're talking to your sellers. Your buyers want to buy it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like they have a sentimental value towards that playhouse. So for me, it's hard, to tell them just sell it to them, or because they want it, they want to keep it, right? They want to take it to their new house, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try somebody else and see what they want to say. Anybody else got a different take on the play set? I agree with you. There's sentimental value, very strong sentimental value.
Replace it with something comparable.
That's a decent suggestion. Cheryl, Maren?
I was thinking, do they understand how complex it might be when to take it down and move it? So realistically, is it something that they're capable of doing? Do they have the proper equipment, tear down, move, and rebuild, or the energy?
Yeah. And honestly, this is where I would go. You understand that if we take it down, we're going to have to dig it up because it's going to be concreted into the ground and it's likely to get damaged. 2, you're going to have to move it. Have you thought of the expense of moving this thing? So first somebody's got to dismantle it, hopefully without breaking it. And then they've got to pay for the cost of moving it and then reinstalling it. will it survive? Our experience, Jen and I were talking about this earlier, our experience with that type of equipment is it doesn't survive. It falls apart, it gets broken. So what are some other things that you can do to help protect the sentimental value of that? Because there are some things that you could do without taking it down. So what are some things you could offer to the seller as a means of keeping the sentimental value? What are some things you could suggest?
Framed photo
A framed photograph.
or even a drawing, but professionally.
A professional drawing. Yep. Another one would be to take one of the posts. Maybe dad signed it and burned his name in it. Everything my husband makes, everything my father makes, their name is in it. Can I take that post and replace that post? What's the sentimental thing that you could share? Because the buyers have said, we really want that because we can see our kids, our grandchildren, our friends, children playing on it, and we just love it. We just love it so much. So how can we honor dad? Yeah, go ahead.
Take a picture of the kids, the new kids on it, and share it with them.
Just tell them the story. So what would your father want? What do you want? He built it to have children play on it and be happy, right? So it's going to make a whole nother generation of children happy. So let's take a post, let's make a picture, let's have an artist come and do a drawing, a rendering of it, so you can take it with you. Does that make sense to everybody?
What happens if they say we want our grandkids to play on it?
You say, well, and at that point, you can say, do you understand the expense? You're going to have to repair the ground. You're going to have to resod. You're going to have to move it. Are you, is it worth it?
For them, it might is, and then it gets really difficult too.
So now let me tell you the other thing. This house was listed at 119.9. So chances are they don't have the money to move this thing.
Right.
If it was a $400,000 house, probably.
Yeah,
So you've got to consider, you got to weigh it. Now, what about the chandelier? As a listing agent, how should you have handled that heirloom chandelier?
You have to write it in there that it goes with you when you sell the house.
There's a better way to deal with it.
Either they can buy it from you.
Shauna?
Prior to listing it, discuss those features and then have them just replace it before it gets listed.
That's the way to do it. You take it down before you ever show the house or take photographs. Because once they've seen it, they fixate on it. Once you tell them they can't have it, they got to have it. And they know they can counter anything. So it doesn't matter that you wrote into the listing agreement that this is going, it's going to be excluded. They're going to want it. I guarantee it. As soon as you tell them they can't have it, they got to have it. It's the best chandelier they've ever seen. They can't imagine a better chandelier. And here's the reality. They can't imagine a different chandelier in that spot. So they think they're going to get shorted. So you tell your people, you want to take it with you, let's pack it up, let's put up one now. Well, can't I just leave it up and then we'll just give them a credit? It's going to become a bone of contention. It's going to become a sore spot. They're going to want it because it looks beautiful here. And I've had this stupid chandelier question a couple of times. That's the reason we use the chandelier. The chandelier comes up. It's a thing. It's a real thing. So if you take care of it ahead of time, you're proactive, it's done. So we can't get them together on price. They're $5,000 apart. Again, that math, that $5 per month. Right now it's like $4.37 or something. Changes every day. It's a little under $5 at the current interest rate. But it's around, I would just say it's approximately $5 per thousand. Don't get specific, don't be specific. When you break that down with buyers, you can get the money to come together really fast. It's going to cost you a different $50 a month. Oh, $50 a month. I won't even notice $50 a month. That's not always going to be true. For some people, $50 a month is a difference between that house and no house. So on lower end homes, that $50 a month may not be doable for them. On higher level homes, they'll be like, oh, really? Is that it? Never mind. Fine, done. So houses 150 and up, not a deal. not a deal breaker. Under that, maybe. So you need to know your people's financial situation. How close to the wire are they working? Which is why you want to give your people room to negotiate. Don't start them at the top of their budget. Start them a little below that top mark. Unless they have really big budgets and they're much bigger than they're telling you. And you'll know, you'll start to get a feel for it. But if you're looking at $60,000 houses with a client, $50 a month, they may not be able to do that. That's huge. So consider who's your client. Let's see. So some people, some buyers, some offers are going to come in. I've had one, just one, thank goodness, that came in and they wanted the contents of the house, everything. The house was clearly vacant, but they wanted every piece, every stick of furniture, every rug, every curtain, everything. And of course, it was the lowest offer. Do you know how to deal with personal property? What personal property can you write into the contract? Anybody? What personal? Pardon me?
All furniture and appliances?
I would say anything.
You know, there is some personal property you can write in. No, Roxanne, not grills. What are most common to go with a house?
Appliances.
Appliances.
Washer, dryer, refrigerator, stove, dishwasher, microwave. Once you have crossed that boundary, I want the lawnmower, I want the rider, I want the snow blower, I want the lawn furniture, I want the shed is a part of the property. It's listed in the MLS as like a house plus shed and a 2-car attached or detached garage. Once I start doing the other things, I want this lamp, I want that couch, I want the bar set, I want this, I want that. If it's a mortgage of any kind, the bankers do not want that attached. Why? Those aren't mortgageable. They're not mortgageable. Because they have no intrinsic value. The house has the value. The appliances that are attached, they'll allow. After that, they get squeamish. So your loan officer can tell you what things to put into a contract and what not to. They don't want to see anything to do with that. So don't even attach it. However, and I've had this situation, I had a buyer seller that knew each other. They weren't friends, they were acquaintances, they knew each other. As we were walking around the house, one of them had come home and said, oh, if you want, we're going to sell this and we're going to sell that and we're going to sell this. They were having a divorce. So, and I said to my buyers, if you want that furniture, talk to me, we'll write it up and we'll get it signed and we'll agree to a price, but it'll be separate from the contract. You'll have to pay cash for that. Okay. And he didn't come to me and tell me. So he dealt with it on his own and they made a gentleman's agreement on everything they were going to buy and how much money was going to come to pass. So a week later after closing, I would find out that what happened, first, the day of closing, my client calls up and he's furious because none of the items are in the house, none of them. A week later, what I found out what happened is the husband and wife, who were not having a happy divorce, but a very, very bitter divorce, the cops were called. They were throwing things. They were, she was taking all the furniture he said he's got, which she was the one that was saying, this is going to be for sale. But the husband had made the arrangement. So now she wasn't going to play. So she took everything. Cops had to be called. It was a big deal. And my buyer calls me up and he goes, well, how can you help me? And I said, well, I can't. He says, what do you mean? I said, did you help me to write it up? Did you sign a document? Did you date it? Was there a witness? And he says, no. I said, did you involve me? He said, no. I said, then I can't help you. I said, had you involved me, I would have given it to your attorney and they could have worked it out. But I said, as it is, you have nothing. So I'm sorry, you're not, you won't be getting any of that, I don't think, unless they can work it out between themselves. So when they work with you and they do things appropriately, you may be able to help them. In this case, I probably would have said, listen, it's a divorce. The best thing for you to do is just walk away and just be happy the house is there with everything, it's working. But you can't put that personal property, the couch and the bookcase and the this and the that in a mortgage. Because remember, whatever you're writing is mortgageable. It's a part of the mortgage. So those appliances are about it. Jen, did you want to say anything about those attachments?
No, except for it's, it can become, and just keep it separate. And again, the consumer doesn't understand that, so it is our job to educate them on how all of this works. And yeah, bankers and lawyers freak out when they see personal property stuff included in contracts. So yeah, because it's not real property. And in some areas, I don't think in upstate New York this is really true, but a refrigerator, a lot of people take their refrigerators. And in our marketplace, that's not normal practice. But it's just like it just plugs into the wall, so I can take it with me.
However, when you're going to new builds, the refrigerator is almost never included. They have to get their own refrigerator. The stove is included. Stoves have to be included, but refrigerators don't. And so they say, well, people mostly want to bring themselves. No, they don't. They want to make more money off of that deal because they've got some. Anyway, it's a thing. New builds, it's a different animal. So when you're dealing with the personal property, be careful. You don't want to go too far. If you don't know, call your loan officer and ask them, what can I include? And they'll tell you, don't do that. Don't put that in the mortgage. That's got to be a side deal in cash, separate.
And Maggie, I don't know if you, sorry, my 92-year-old mother fell. She's fine, but that's why I had to check out for a few minutes. The ambulance boys are going over to pick her up off the floor as we speak. I know, it's just a weekly occurrence. But I wanted to, and I don't know, Maggie, if you spoke of this, but say somebody has an antique heirloom chandelier in the dining room.
We did the chandelier.
You did? Yeah, have them remove it and replace it before the house gets listed. Because I find it very insulting to read a listing that says, everything's transferable except for the drapes and the light in the dining room chandelier. It's like, really? You're selling a $500,000 house, either include the chandelier, because really how much can it be worth, or replace it with anything else before you even list it, so nobody even is the wiser, because that's just bad form.
And as far as curtains and all that, rods and anything that's screwed to the wall, blinds, stay with the house, period. If you have a wall mount television, you can take the TV, the wall mount stays on the wall. If they want to take the wall mount because it fits their TV and they just don't want to replace it, they have to take it down before they list it and fix the wall before they take it. And that's really the reason, because the wall behind it, if they take it down, it's a mess.
And washers and dryers are weird things. I know when I bought 2 houses ago, the people were adamant. They're like, well, we want you to buy our washer and dryer. Well, I didn't want their old washer and dryer. I wanted brand new washer and dryer. And it was like they were getting mad at me. And I'm like, it's not part of the sale. I don't want them. I don't want them. And sometimes, if you've got first-time home buyers or whatever, they would like them, and don't assume anything. include that in a purchase offer.
So in our
But-
area, the ones that are almost always there are the refrigerator, the stove, the dishwasher, and a microwave. Washers and dryers are negotiable or taking, and they're excluded. And that's a normal exclusion because they're just plugged into the wall.
I will say though, with front load washers and dryers, front load washers do not move well. Just for a little washer dryer edification.
Yeah, so if they've spent $1,000 on a washer and dryer each, they're probably better off left at the property. Because by the time the drum gets moved, they don't function properly.
Yeah,
ever
there are
again.
drum locks, but most movers don't do it right. And yeah,
It's like
but,
moving
you
a
know, just-
grand piano or a pool table. You need people who know what they're doing to do that properly, because you can't just throw them on the back of a pickup truck and hope it's going to survive. It just doesn't work out. So most people with a grand piano know that. Some people with a pool table don't know that it's much easier to leave it either with the property or to Craigslist it and get it out before they list it. Because a pool table, if you don't want one, is a big deterrent to certain people. To me, it'd be great, be a boon. I'd love it. But we didn't get it. So anyway.
No,
In any
that's all
event,
I've got. I know we're like a half hour early.
yeah, no, I was gonna let them go at 4 o'clock. But do you guys have any more questions about, if you need to go for your mom, go.
No, she's,
Okay. Do you guys have any questions on negotiation? Because this is your time, and we'll stay if you do, and we'll let you go if you don't.
Maggie, I don't have a question, just maybe a comment to share.
Sure. Yep.
In my experience in sales, which has been my entire professional career, I've coached my team, my sales team, around pricing and profit margin and creating value and knowing your value. And I really like that part because one of the things I always try to coach my sales group on in the past, and quite honestly, currently still today at the moment, is know your value, and that and I emphasize your clients are willing to pay what they perceive your value to be.
Absolutely.
And if you can't create that value and articulate that, then in their minds, the value is less than what you perceive your value to be. So I just wanted
That's
to.
true. When I owned my massage business, I had some of the highest rates in the city of Rochester, and I had the same or higher rates than the top end spas. But I also had the best trained, best educated, most CE credit massage therapists anywhere in my business. And so when brand new people came in, we allowed them for a very short period of time to charge a little bit less. Anyway, one of the women who worked with me that I went to school with, massage school, she kept making discounts for certain people. She kept deciding that they couldn't spend the full price. And eventually she'll have to go back to nursing school. And I acquired about 40% of her practice. And my first conversation with them was, I'm happy to, on the first time you're working with me, is to charge you the rate that she charged you. However, the next time it's going to be at my rates, which were $30 more. I was charging $75 an hour. She was charging $45 an hour. And they're like, what? And I said, yeah, that's my rate. And here's why. This is what you get from me when you work with me. All but 2 of them said, no problem. The 2 who couldn't said, I can't afford that, so I'll just come every other month. So for them, I said, how much more can you afford? And they gave me a number, and I said, okay, I'll move you up to there, and I'll keep you at that level. I'll put you on a sliding scale because I'd rather you came at your regular interval, because they both had underlying conditions and it made it impossible. Don't ever decide what people can pay. I knew that when they said that they still wanted to come, but they could only come half as often, that they really wanted the service and they really couldn't spend more. So then I made an adjustment. But she had decided for all of the people that I acquired from her were at the 45. I moved all but 2 of them up to $30 an hour more immediately, because I didn't decide what they could afford. So we make decisions for people that aren't our decisions to make.
Maggie, also something that I've used as example sometimes, this may be helpful for the group, but people pay, they have, buying something is emotional to them. And so, it's not all about price. So if you think about it and you look at your clients, what do they wear? They wear specific clothes, brand names, type of car, whatever it happens to be, they buy based on what they feel is good for them. And so they're not necessarily buying everything on price, and they traditionally don't. And it's kind of like automobile sales. I look at automobile sales and I look at it, and as I use this as an example to some of my team, has been, you may buy the vehicle from the dealership based on, the brand or the price at the time, maybe combination, collectively. But what you'll probably go back to that dealership on is because of how well they service you after the sale.
Absolutely, true.
Right. So those are just some other examples that I've used over the course of my career that, really, I think helped me and helps sales folks in general.
I love the Martha Stewart example. A lot of times when people have to pay more for something, they believe that it's better quality. So when Martha Stewart first got started, she sold pies at the mall. She got a little kiosk and she had tables set up. And the first day she went to sell the pies, she charged $5. She went home with like 80% of her pies and she was mad about it. So the next day she had decided she was going to go in, she made fresh pies. And then on that day she charged $15 a pie, and people kept coming up and go, wow, these must be great pies if they're $15. She said, they're the best pies you'll ever eat. She sold out in a matter of hours. And she said she learned a very valuable lesson. When the price was higher, they thought they got better service, a better pie. It was the exact same recipe, the exact same person, 2 days apart. So the value is perceived. It's a perception. And if you understand your own value and can convey your value, people will believe in you. So negotiating for yourself, negotiating for your clients is a lot of perception. So the more you can understand what you're doing and how to sell that perception, more people will do what they need to do to get what they want. They've already told you the parameters. These are the prices. This is what I want. How are you going to match those together? Your fiduciary duty is put their interests ahead of your own. And I believe that that's the right thing to do. And if you do that, it all starts to work together. It's not about manipulating people and like coercing them. That's never what we want you to do. We want you to help people understand the value of a house, your value as a realtor, to move them forward to the conclusion that they have asked you to make. Does that make sense? Yeah, I see exhaustion. That's what I see here. Beth looks like she's gonna pass out. She's got 2 little kids. I don't know how you do this, Beth. I really don't. I was barely conscious when my kids were that small. So if you guys do you have anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, half hour early, and then we will see you at 9 o'clock on Thursday morning.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Thank you very much for letting me join in.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you were here. How'd it go? Kelly and Ryan, did you guys do okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deborah, there was a point where I was asking questions and I thought I was going to ask you if your cat had a question because its tail was in a perfect question mark. It cracked me up. So Kelly, I'll send you the ebook. And
Okay.
then Natalie's
Is
off
the
today, so I
ebook
don't.
something that you're going to be sending me online?
Yep.
Okay. And now I'm so new at Zoom. How would I do I need to be viewing that while
It's
I'm
not in Zoom. I'll just send you an email with it.
okay?
It'll be a
So
link.
I need to read ahead for Thursday then for that.
No, you're just gonna have, when you get the ebook, it goes with each class. So like today's classes were, I think, pages 42 through 45. And there's some activities. So it went from the beginning. So you'll see. And there's some activities in there for you to do. And you could do those whether you've been in the classes or not. Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's for you to help you get your business rolling. The more of the activities that you do, the better for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. You have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.